Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. I am Abdul Smith Bey for AMPAG, Wazial Rays, and today we'll be discussing follow-up to how to establish more states. We'll be discussing things, right? So how to establish your more states is your sovereignty and independence. Then thereafter, it's integrity of domains. And the question is, well, what do we do? What's the next step? What's the next move after we establish our state? That's what this particular call deals with. I'm calling it government operations, but it's not necessarily on a deep level. Let me share the screen. It's not necessarily on a deep level. It's basically, it's broad and on the surface, more so dealing with our current varying stages of advancement and what are the next steps to take as newly formed modern states in Morocco, as distinguished from the full operations once we have forced or fully forced decolonization after we come back from the ICJ. That would look a little bit different, in fact, quite different. But the steps that we're taking before we even get to the ICJ is what we'll be discussing. And keep in mind that all of you who are interested in establishing your states, you've got some good help, some real good help. I want to put something in perspective that I've been meaning to put in perspective. AMPAC has been around since 2001, right? So we can easily say 2 years at minimum, right? Two years plus, but let's say 2 years. New Mecca was the second state. Aloy de Moorish Parade of New Mecca. The Wazir is Amir Hassan Il. They're out of Oregon, formerly known as Oregon State, the trust territory known as Oregon, right? Their inauguration, I don't recall exactly the day, but the month was in May. And then us, AMPAG, we were May 29th. So New Mecca and AMPAG being the third to come online, we had our inauguration the same month as New Mecca. So as of now, we're 7 months into our operations or so. So combined, that would be 14 months, a year and 4 months. Add AMPAC's 2 years, that's 3, right? So we have 3 years and 4 months head start on the Moors, which puts us in a position of mentorship. Because clearly we've done certain things that you haven't done yet, and you may not even be sure as to what to do. And so since we've done it, we can share it with the experience that we have. This is the point that I'm trying to make. And so therefore, all the states coming online who's seeking to understand how to go through these processes would be apprenticeship states, mentor states, and apprenticeship states. And where it's a thing of iron sharpening iron. Each one teach one, each one.
That's cool. So why's she trying to do that though?
Could you mute yourself, please? Wherever that is. Can everyone hear me? Did everyone hear everything that I said?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'm proud to say that Moorish State Republic, out of all of our states, the currently 4 recognized states, are the ones who did it the absolute correct way on the very first try. AMPAG, New Mecca, and AMPAG made mistakes along the way, and all those mistakes was consolidated in the AMPAG model instruments that was developed and it's used to assist the Moors with their states through Sister Nova Ill, right? And so that was the process and the model instruments that was provided to Maru that allowed them to be able to make it happen the right way the very first time on the first go around. Same could be said for AMPAM, Allodium Moroccan Parade in Monte, Michigan. I believe Demty they're still working on some stuff, but Maru and AMPAM have done it absolutely correct, an excellent job thus far on their first go around. And that's a testament to the mentorship state going through the trials and tribulations first, to then consolidate it in model instruments to share it with the oncoming states so that they don't have to go through the pain and the hardships of making these mistakes. This is how this works. Each one teach one. Oh, and by the way, it's for free. I love it. I love pointing that out. So all we ask from you is your effort. Because what we need are several states as erga omnes parties under a declaration of intervention document to join the good fight with AMPAG and basically gang up on the United States with all our states, not a bunch of individuals with baggage and chip on our shoulders. No, competent states that are found with that have full force, that are full powers, I'm sorry, that is found in good and due form. That's a whole other situation. That's a whole other paradigm. That's a whole other way of moving. That's a whole other operation. These are things that we're not used to or even knew of all this time that we've been around. And all this information it's at your fingertips, free. None of this stuff costs, you just Google stuff and man, the information is out there, as we'll see in a second. So we ask that you join the fight, bring all your ideas, right? Iron sharpens iron. Yeah, we may be, as mentorship state, we may have certain experiences and wisdom as it relates to establishing and checking the second box of integrity of domains. But you all are Moors, which means what? You're the high priest of Anu, which means what? You're brilliant people, which means what? You have great ideas. And we got to put our heads together as an organized dual society, a body politic, and start coming up with plans and discussing things amongst one another as it relates to our freedom and liberation being done the competent way through three branches of government. Islam, we'll begin with the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties. And not, of course, we're not going to go over the whole thing. It's in the interest of time. And plus, we've already went over this. But we'll touch a few articles so that you can see what the international community view as the rules of engagement and rules of operation. Every game has rules, a set of rules, right? Basketball has its own set of rules. Football has a set of rules. Engineering has a set of rules. The medical field has a set of rules, right? Golf has a set of rules. Chess has certain sets of rules. So there's politics, especially international politics. There's rules to the game. Drug dealing has rules to the game. Gangbanging has structure and rules to the game. And you get into disputes when you violate or you break those rules. You must follow all the rules to all the games to the T. Or don't do it at all. Same thing with international law and statehood and government operations. There's rules to the game, Moors. Yes, we're Moors. We invented chess. Just because of our consanguinity and the fact that we invented chess doesn't mean that now we get to change the rules of the game. You don't just come in and do as you please. I'm just gonna move my pawn diagonally throughout the whole game. And I'm gonna capture forward. Because I'm a Moor. Or I'll just travel and run down the court with the ball in my hand. Because I'm a Moor. I do as I please. Right? can't operate like that. Operating like that equals to chaos. And that's how we've been operating based on the old paradigm. It's been a chaotic thing. International law is reigning in the order of those chaotic processes and activities that we undertook in the old paradigm that ultimately didn't take us anywhere. There was no forward motion. There was motion, but not forward motion. It's like running in place. The prophet said we need to be active and not passive. So according to the rules of international law, dictated by the Vienna Convention on the Laws of 1969, it states, for example, Article 1, the present convention applies to treaties between states, not between people, not between individuals, not between organizations, associations, temples, churches, states, 3 branches of government. I mean, it's clear as day. There's nothing else to talk about that. We'll skip down to Article 7. I hope I don't mess you all up with the scrolling. Article 7 talks about full powers. Can I get a reader read for me, please, as to the reading for Article 7, full powers?
Islam. A person is considered as representing a state for the purpose of adopting or authenticating the text of a treaty or for the purpose of expressing the consent of the state to be bound by a treaty if A, he produces appropriate full powers, or B, it appears for the practice of states concerned or from other circumstances that their intention was to consider that person as representing the state for such purposes and to dispense with full powers.
I appreciate that, good brother. Islam.
Islam.
Now let's talk about, so let's go here. Someone said something? Okay. So let's go here. You see this? This is called the model instrument. That comes from the United Nations treaty section. In fact, let's show you here. This is the website, United Nations Treaty Collection. I said take notes. United Nations Treaty Collection. And you'll go to the resources, and then down here you'll see model instruments. That's where we're already at. This is not the home section. This is a the model instrument section. Let me blow it up a little bit so you can see it. Oh, that's too much. At least from my view. Okay. So you have a lot of study resources. There's a lot that you would need to go back and study on your own. We're providing the reference points for you to be able to go back and study on your own. So this is the United Nations Treaty Collection. You just Google that and this will pop up. So you got a treaty handbook, final clauses handbook, summary of practice, notes, verbals, regulations, Secretary General bulletin, model instruments, model clarifying statements. So model instruments is where you would primarily go to access. You see it says here, number 1, full powers. You have it in Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. Ratification, acceptance, or approval. You have those documents. These are model instruments, templates. I'm really getting ready to show you how easy things they really are. Right? It's a lot of the work has been done for you, and the United Nations has taken the time to do it for you in many ways. Number 3 is the accession documents, Arabic, Chinese, English, etc. Reservation and declarations, modification of reservations, withdrawal of reservations. So these are all the model instruments that the United Nations provide to the states and the heads of states for different reasons as it relates to the how would I say, the for lack of a better term, let's say operation of the treaty, right? How to utilize the treaties. What is it that you want to do with the treaties? Do you want to accede to the treaties? Do you want to preserve the treaties, etc.? So that's the model instrument, or the full powers document here that we were just reading. Model instruments of full powers. So notice how it's, let me blow this up a little bit more. Okay, you see in parentheses, it says to be signed by the head of state, head of government, or minister of foreign affairs, or minister for foreign affairs. So either one of those groups would sign it. However, the way we've been practicing this thing is that we utilize the full powers document to transfer the full powers of the wazir, prime minister, to the minister of foreign affairs, though it's not necessarily absolutely necessary, because the minister of foreign affairs can also be considered a head of state representing the state abroad, right, in foreign matters. But look at how easy it is. So it tells you, it told you what it's about and who can use it. It's for like C students, right? Full power. So then it reads, it puts a bracket. Obviously, you wouldn't use this bracket. It's just telling you what you need to put in those brackets. So it tells you what you got to do. I, name and title of the head of state, head of government, or minister of foreign affairs. So I, Amaru El Hiram Bey, Minister of Foreign Affairs. No, I apologize. Let me rephrase that. This is the full powers. I, Abdul Smith Bey, right, because I'm the head of state, head of state, hereby authorize, name and title. So it's telling you what to do. Oh, so you just plug in name and the title of the person that you're extending your full powers to be your ambassador, plenipotentiary, minister of foreign affairs, etc. That would represent you, or represent the state, or represent the head of state and the state in the absence of the head of state abroad. Another was called diplomatic missions, dealing with other nations. Is everything clear thus far? Are there any questions to this point?
One question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so where it says I, name, and then title, would you put like you say, your name, and then would that title be the Wazir Al-Rays?
That's correct.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, I, Abdul Smith Bey, Wazir Al-Rays, or not even of AMPAG, is Wazir Al-Rays. See, it doesn't say of anything. You follow exactly as it says. I, Abdul Smith Bey, Wazir Al-Rays, hereby authorize Amaru El Hiram Bey, which is AMPAG's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Haji. And then so the next bracket you see: sign, ratify, denounce, effect the following declaration in respect of, etc. The title, date of treaty, convention, agreement. So you'll put the title of the treaty, convention, or agreement, and the date of the treaty, convention, or agreement. On behalf of the government of Lodier Morris Palladium, Ante, Georgia. So you'll see these several brackets. So the first bracket has the name and the title, right, of the person that you're conferring the full powers to. The second bracket has it tells you whether it's a signed, ratified, denounced, and then also goes on to say effect the following declaration in respect of, etc. Then you got the word the, and then another bracket, title and date of treaty. So you put in the title. So for example, let's say the United Nations Charter of 1945. That's what you would put in there, right? On behalf of the government of there goes the bracket, Allodium Moroccan Palladium Ante Michigan. So then it would read as such: I, Abdul Smith Bey, Wazir al-Reis, hereby authorize Amaru Hiram Bey to, let's say, ratify the United Nations Charter of 1945 on behalf of the government of Allodium Moorish Palladium Ante Georgia. You see? Then what do? Done that, place, on date. So you would put your capital address there. And then the date. You sign it. Send that bad boy off. To who? Okay, good question. Depositories of the United Nations. Last week, or was it last week? No, week before last. We talked about establishing the government. And that you had to deposit your ratified constitution with the Secretary General. That's the depository for your ratified constitutions, treaties, and things of that nature. But when you accede to the treaties, right? When you're accepting the treaties, the depository will be the treaty section of the United Nations. So it wouldn't, that depository doesn't go to the Secretary, it goes to what's called the treaty section, legal affairs. Office of Legal Affairs. Write that down. Treaty section / Office of Legal Affairs. You Google that, it'll give you the address and everything. Well, you know, we could also offer you the provide the address for you, but it'll tell you, it'll give you further instructions. So that's the full powers document. Any questions on the full powers document?
Islam, brother, could you just repeat that address again?
Oh, I didn't provide an address.
No, not the address. I'm sorry. You said the Department of Contact. You said
treaty section / Office of Legal Affairs.
Islam, brother, appreciate that.
Let's see here. This is the treaty collection. We can go. I knew I was forgetting something.
I have a question.
Okay. Hold that thought real quick, Makara. So you see, this is the website that I brought you to, right? United Nations Treaty Collection with all the instruments, the model instruments. Well, if you scroll all the way down that same website, that's what it is right there. You see where it says treaty section and Office of Legal Affairs? Where it says about?
Islam, brother.
That's where you go to it. Go ahead, Sister Makara.
When you were reading the part about, the Wazir is authorizing the Minister of Foreign Affairs, etc., could you put more? Could you do that for more than one person on the same letter, or could you do it for more than one person with each of their own letters?
When you say each person, what do you
like say for instance, if you wanted to give those powers to more than the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Well, why would you want to do that? Like, I mean, you could, yeah. If you could.
Okay,
You would have to provide several. Let's say you had. Yes, there are reasons for that. Actually, I don't know why I asked that question. There are reasons for that because you may have 3 different missions in 3 different nations. So you need to appoint 3 different ministers of foreign affairs, plenipotentiaries, ambassadors. So each one would go with its own full powers document.
All right, thank you.
Any other question? Okay. So that's Article 7 of the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties. Well, actually, let's continue on with the read here, good brother, if you don't mind, of the same article.
Islam, brother. 2, in virtue of their functions and without having to produce full powers, the following are considered as representing their state.
Okay, all that thought. So in virtue of their functions and without having to produce full powers, meaning that that officer, based on his functions, does not have to provide full power, one of those full power documents from the model section that we just went over. Continue.
A, heads of state, heads of government, and ministers for foreign affairs for the purpose of performing all acts relating to the conclusion of a treaty.
Hold that
B.
thought. Hold that thought. So, one of our states was asking a question in regards to that because they're in the process of acceding to the treaties. And again, the way we teach is that we utilize the full powers document to transfer the full powers to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, etc. But this particular state got some things going on with internally within their state that shall remain private. And so they weren't sure which way to go as it relates to having the wazir transferring his full powers, because the issues is surrounding the wazir. So what do? How do we accede to the treaties with our minister, with RG, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, if we're not, there's problems with the wazir? How do we extend him the full powers? Well, according to Article 7, Part A, it says heads of state, heads of government, and ministers of foreign affairs, your Haji, for the purpose of performing all acts relating to the conclusion of the treaty. So they already have what's at the very top, what's right above that. In virtue of their functions and without having to produce full power, the following are considered as representing their state. So you got the head of state, heads of government, and then you also have your Minister of Foreign Affairs. So they already recognize the Minister of Foreign Affairs as an officer that's representing the state and therefore does not necessarily need to produce full power documents. Continue, bro.
B. Heads of diplomatic missions for the purpose of adopting the text of a treaty between the accrediting state and the state to which they are accredited. C. Representatives accredited by states to an international conference or to an international organization or one of its organs for the purpose of adopting the text of a treaty in that conference, organization, or organ.
So we got something similar to that going on. But so B says heads of diplomatic missions. What is a diplomatic mission? Okay. A diplomatic mission is AMPAG has established an embassy in Brazil. So AMPAG sends a representative, i.e. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador, Minister Plenipotentiary, Chargé d'Affaires, to send that officer to Brazil to represent AMPAG here in Northwest Mexico. That's a diplomatic mission, right? And so any involvements in dealing involvement with, we will be considered the sending state. Brazil will be considered the receiving state. And so the receiving state has to afford protections to the officers of the sending state, i.e. diplomatic relations. That's why embassies are so well protected in different countries.
Interjection, brother. Could somebody possibly pause whatever that background noise is?
Yeah, please.
Sure where that's coming from. Apology.
No problem. Please, please mute your mic. I thought it was actually you, good brother. I thought you had a TV on in the background. Otherwise, I would have said something. But thank you for recognizing it and speaking up. So that's why you see that ambassadors and other representatives, state representatives that are on missions at a consulate or an embassy, etc., they're under full protections by the receiving state. That's dealing with diplomatic relations, which is something that we're discussing currently as we speak on the Monday night classes or roundtable classes with J. Jermaine Bay. We're literally going over that as we speak. Islam, okay. And then C says representatives accredited by states. So our state is accrediting our representatives, right, to an international conference or to an international organization or one of its organs. for the purpose of adopting the text of a treaty in that conference, organization, or organ. So we've got an organ, a conference, and an organization. That's the WRC, the Wazir Regional Council. For you guys that was on the call on Wednesday, we went over it. If you didn't make it on the call, it's currently on YouTube. You can go back and examine it. It's a convention, 111 articles that we put together, and the main signatory powers are the 4 recognized states: AMPAG, New Mecca, and Meru. Every other state that gained their full powers is found in due form as they go through their varying stages of advancement of checking these boxes. But now they wouldn't be the original signatory powers. They would accede to the convention. And that's what we're talking about now. Right? Many of these conventions and treaties, etc., are old. It's impossible for us to have been the signatory powers, right? We come after the fact. And for that purpose, that's why you have ascensions and reservations and approvals, right? Let me see where we're at. Article 8. Let's go up. I shouldn't have skipped past this. This was very important and germane. I don't know why I skipped past it. Let me go back up. I think it's Article 2. Actually, let's see. It is. Okay, so Article 2, use of terms, right? For the purpose of the present convention, treaty, it tells you what a treaty means: ratification, acceptance, approval, and accession. Mean in each case the international act so named whereby a state establishes on the international plane its consent to be bound by a treaty. So you have to express your consent to be bound by the treaty. So when you come on, when all the Moroccan states that are coming online, once they have checked all the boxes within integrity of domain, they can now accede to the convention to make themselves bound to the treaty for that convention. Full powers, we already went over full powers. Reservation means a unilateral statement, however phrased or named, made by a state when signing, ratifying, accepting, approving, or acceding to a treaty, whereby it purports to exclude or to modify the legal effect of certain provisions of the treaty and their application to that state. Then you got the negotiating state. So with the WRC, the Wazir Regional Council, who are the negotiating states? AMPAG, New Mecca, AMPAG, Meru. Contracting states. Contracting states is anyone who accedes to the treaty, become bound to the treaty. Parties, obviously we know what that means. The different states that are part of it, right? Party means a state which has consented to be bound by the treaty and for which the treaty is in force. Third state means a state not party to the treaty, right? So they're not. So let's say, for example, a compound out of the Maroons out of Jamaica. Once we all establish, once we continue, finish the enactment of the convention and all the states become a part of it, but and a compound doesn't, because they may not know about it, whatever the case might be, there would be a third state, right? They're not a party to the treaty. United States is a third state. Any other state is a third state, actually. And then you got international organization, means an intergovernmental organization. So who is an intergovernmental organization? The United States. Okay, so those were the definitions. I'm sorry I didn't go over those. So let me get back to 7. So we were talking about full powers. Now we're done with the full powers. Let's go to Article 14. And obviously, I'm skipping past several articles. You can always go Google it and pull out this document and review it. We've already went over it, but it's a good portion of it as well. So Article 14, consent to be bound by a treaty. Go ahead, brother. Could you read that for me?
Islam. The consent of a state to be bound by a treaty is expressed by a ratification when A, the treaty provides for such consent to be expressed by means of ratification. B, it is otherwise established that the negotiating states were agreed that ratification should be required. C, the representative of the state has signed the treaty subject to ratification. Or D, the intention of the state to sign the treaty subject to ratification appears from the full powers of its representative or was expressed during the negotiation. 2, the consent of a state to be bound by a treaty is expressed by acceptance or approval under conditions similar to those which apply to ratification.
Why are we going over this? Real quick. Forgot to mention that. Well, and please mute your mics. We're hearing background noise. Moors have been, for years, we've been talking about enforcing the treaties and invoking provisions, forcing the colonists to respect the treaties, etc. Well, you cannot do that unless you have three branches of government. There's three branches of government in which you can do that, and those in the three branches of government has to have full powers that's found in good and due form. Or invoke treaty provisions on foreign states if you're not party to it. You see? So this the establishment of the newly formed modern state of AMPAG is not signatory to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Well, then how do we enforce the Treaty of Peace and Friendship if we're not signatory powers? You accede to the treaty. Understood? You become party to the treaty through accession, reservations, and approval. But first, you have to have full powers as found in good and due form. You have to have three branches of government. You cannot do it as an individual. This is why we couldn't do it as an individual, Morris. It's right here. These are the rules to the game. And so approaching the colonists as an individual that has no full powers and is not found in good or due form, no three branches of government, just use an individual. Even
Excuse
worse.
me, brother.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. When you say reservation and approval, can you elaborate on what are you saying there?
Hold on a second. Let me lose my train of thought. Let me finish this point real quick, and then I'll.
Okay.
Where was I? Man, I lost my train of thought. Can anyone help me with my train of thought that I was just? Okay. Okay, okay. Let me back up. I was talking about. Okay, so that's why as individuals.
Yes, I was about to help you out with that. You were speaking about you can't be an individual and making claims dealing with the UN.
Right, because the rules are the rules. Thank you, good brother. Because the rules are the rules. And the rules state that you have to be three branches of government. So when you operate outside of the rules, and even worse as a subject, Moorish subject, because you don't have full powers and it's not found in good and due form. So therefore you're a Moorish subject. Subject to what? The United States laws, American jurisdiction. This is why when you approach them with that, not only do they give you psychological evaluation, but also they call you sovereign citizens, or called us sovereign citizens. They know the rules to the game, and they know that we're violating the rules to the game. But when you approach them with three branches of government, you accede to the treaties. Now you can invoke the treaty provisions that they must adhere to. So when more say, well, they don't respect the treaties, they don't respect it, yeah, because you're coming at them as individuals. When we come at them as states and they continue their belligerence, the next step is to take them to the ICJ. because we have to, then we now have the full powers as found in good and due form to take them to the ICJ. If they don't acquiesce to the judgment of the ICJ and they tell the ICJ to kick rocks, we take them to the ICC, International Court of Criminal Court, which tries the head of state in his private capacity. If they tell the head of state to kick rocks and nothing happens to the United States, now you can say, once you go through that due process of law, is only then and then only can you say, oh, they don't respect treaties. But until we've done it the right way, then you can't say that. Furthermore, I can prove that they do respect treaties because right now that, just recently they had to pay Iran, I don't know how many billions of dollars based on an ICJ judgment under the Trump administration for violating treaties. And they paid up. So what make them any better than us? That they'll pay Iran, but they're not going to acquiesce to Moroccan law. Until we go through the due process of law, we cannot say that they will not adhere to the treaty. We got to get that out of our heads. That's part of the old paradigm thinking and mentality. Islam. So you asked about where are we? We're on Article 15. Okay. Let's see here if I can answer that question. You asked about ratification and approval. Let's go back to the definition. Ratification. So your question was, what is, to elaborate on ratification, acceptance and approval? Wazir from AMPAG. I know that was your voice. If you're talking, you're on mute. Okay, I'll let her come back. Maybe she had to step away. What was that? But okay,
Islam, yes, that's what.
that was the question. Okay, I was going to go back up and go over it anyway for the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Like, for example, reservation means a unilateral statement, however phrased or named, made by a state. So it's a unilateral statement. Your state made the statement, however phrased or named, made by a state when signing, ratifying, accepting, approving, or acceding to a treaty, whereby it purports to exclude or to modify the legal effects of certain provisions of the treaty in their application to that state. So you're trying to reserve your rights in certain provisions by utilizing a reservation. Does that make sense to you? Are you there, sister?
Yeah, I'm here, but can you make me go over it again? Because I didn't get it that time.
Okay. What? Okay. What?
Okay.
What?
I'm sorry. I didn't have my focus in, so I'm sorry. Please. Thank you. It wasn't you, it was me.
Okay, I'll say it again. Okay, so you're talking about, you asked about reservation. So it says a reservation means a unilateral statement that's coming from your state, written by your state, right? However it's been phrased or named, made by a state. So that's when you're signing, ratifying, accepting, approving, or acceding to a treaty, such as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, or even the United Nations Charter, whereby it purports to exclude or to modify the legal effects of certain provisions of the treaty in their application to that state. So there may be certain provisions that you don't want to have to adhere to. In that case, you put together a reservation, which is a unilateral statement coming from the state that will go as an attachment to your ascensions document. Something that it's not for you to concern yourself with right now, because none of those provisions are to the disadvantage of the Moors. They're all to our advantage. So you don't want any form of reservation. So it's like saying you're reserving your rights to not do certain things within the treaty, and you specify what those provisions are based on the articles.
Mm-hmm.
Islam, does that make sense? And answer that question now?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yes.
Okay, so then you have ratification, acceptance, approval, and accession, meaning in each case, the international act so named whereby a state establishes on the international plane its consent to be bound by a treaty. So they're synonyms, right? They're semantic. Ratification, acceptance, approval, and accession they all mean the same thing. It means that you're seeking to be consent, you're seeking to be bound by the treaty provision,
Mhm.
right? And as it
Mhm.
relates to nationals and their states, all the treaty provisions, at least the ones that I've seen thus far, fully serve us. If it's against anyone, it will be the colonists. So who is it incumbent upon to reserve their rights? If there were to be anyone at the table that's going to want to reserve their rights, it would be the colonists. But they can't. It's too late. They've already signed on to all these treaties, conventions, and resolutions, including Resolution 1514 of 1960, which deals with decolonization and the allowance, without any interruption, the establishment of our Moroccan state government under the right to self-determination of the peoples. Islam.
Islam. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Wazir. All right. Back to 15. All right, good brother. Can you pick up at Article 15, please? Consent to be bound by the treaty expressed by accession.
Islam, the consent to be bound. The treaty provides that such consent may be expressed by that state by means of accession. B, it is otherwise established that the negotiating states were agreed that such consent may be expressed by that state by means of accession. Or C, all the parties have subsequently agreed that such consent may be expressed by that state by means of accession.
I don't think there's much more to be elaborated there. It's clear as day. Would you all agree? These are the instructions. We're just going over the instructions. And they're simple, plain English, short and sweet, straight to the point. One-liners. How do you assemble a playground with the instructions? Sometimes I've seen playground and furniture assembly that's even more complicated than this. Article 16. I'll read the title to Article 16.
Exchange or deposit of instruments of ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession.
Okay,
Unless
hold on right there. So that's telling you exchange or deposit of instruments of ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession. So Article 16 is instruction 16. And what does it say, good brother?
it says, unless the treaty otherwise provides instruments of ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession, establish the consent of a state to be bound by a treaty upon.
So you see that ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession all mean the same. Continue.
A, their exchange between the contracting states. B, their deposit with the depositary. Or C, their notification to contracting states or to the depositary, if so agreed.
That's it. Agreed by who? The contracting states. And then the states that are acceding will have to follow those guidelines that was established by the contracting state when the convention or whatever arrangement or agreement was first enacted. I mean, this stuff is not that difficult, Morris. Okay, let me ask the floor. Honestly speaking, is this difficult? Is this complicated?
No.
I mean, is it rocket science? No.
No, but it's convoluted.
I mean, it's pretty simple. But the problem is that we never knew about these instructions. We're going to 24. Where are we? 24. Go ahead, good brother. Entry into force.
Entry into force. A treaty enters into force in such manner and upon such date as it may provide, or as the negotiating states may agree. 2. Failing any such provision or agreement, a treaty enters into force as soon as consent to be bound by the treaty has been established for all the negotiating states. 3. When the consent of a state to be bound by a treaty is established on a date after the treaty has come into force, the treaty enters into force for that state on that date unless the treaty otherwise provides. 4. The provisions of a treaty regulating the authentication of its text, the establishment of the consent of states to be bound by the treaty, the manner or date of its entry into force, reservations, the functions of the depositary, and other matters arising necessarily before the entry into force of the treaty apply from the time of the adoption of its text.
This is what, instructions. This is how it becomes, this is how it enters into force. And much of which deals with the contracting parties, the negotiating contracting party, what their negotiations may be.
Question on the floor, if
Yes.
possible.
Yes, it's possible.
Okay, you know how we always speak about the interim period. I believe you referred to it as operated in the Negro status at one point. As far as an interim, can now this be utilized, even though it would be a Moorish subject, but also obligating them under what they say their treaty obligations based off of the ratifications and their what they would say is their creation, even though it isn't a municipal creation at present, state, but it's still a creation from the organic treaties that established the United States. So my question, I guess, would be for the interim period, would this be something also enforceable on the said, states and the United States as far as their obligations, being a Moorish subject, so to speak? Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Because
as long as you've already acceded to it with your full powers has been found in good and due form, yes, indeed. Will they fall to their knees and acquiesce to your Moroccan laws? Probably not.
Well, I wouldn't say, as far as the laws, but at least the treaty, protection under the subjugation, of the United States present day. So
Well,
at least,
if you're under the treaty protections, that means that you're under the jurisdiction of your state, and your state is found in good and due form. So therefore, you wouldn't be dealing with any form of subjugation.
Right. Correct.
Right.
Correct. No,
And
like
so,
I said, keep in mind the interim period.
I am keeping in mind the interim period.
Right.
The interim period I'm saying is when I mentioned when I talked about the Negro status, operating in a Negro status, that's a way to finesse them as you go through the varying stages of advancement and to stay out of the way. But if they come knocking at your door, your state is in full powers, that's found in good and due form, you have diplomatic immunities off the top, even as you're going through your varying stages of advancement. One thing is to just stay out of the way as you continue to check the boxes on the low without ruffling feathers, and just surprise them when we come with the full spectrum of our power, instead of broadcasting it all over the place. Stay cool. But if they come messing with you, though, that's where you can now invoke these treaties. Also, if you have certain circumstances that you may be dealing with as an individual. But I try to stay away from that because I don't want Moors thinking that the state is as Jay would say, an emergency room, and have your state being bogged down with a bunch of Moors that's coming in as nationals who are bringing baggage to the state, and now they want the state to stop everything that they're doing, which is a very important aspect of establishing your integrity of domains. You have to, and you don't have the manpower. So now you got to stop everything that you're doing to help Tyrone, Jerome, Jamal, David, Keisha, and everybody else. You won't get anywhere with your state. Will you be able to invoke certain provisions and do certain things and deal with them accordingly to protect your net? Yes, you can do all that. But the question is, do you have the manpower and the time to do so, considering that at this very moment, you're working on establishing the integrity of domain. You're trying to solidify your foundation. Your foundation has to be first plumbed, right? The cement has to be what they call it, cured before you start building a house on there. You don't lay the foundation and then the next day you start building a house. You have the cement has to cure. Same thing. We got to establish the foundation of the state, and to stop that operation to help others, it's not going to work well for the state. You'll never get anywhere. You'll especially once you're successful. Oh man, Moors are going to keep coming out the woodworks for your, seeking your assistance. You'll never get anywhere. You have to kind of like choose what's priority. The people, the state come first. Period. The people always come second, because without the state, there is no people. So we have to focus on the state so that then we can help the people efficiently. Keeping in mind that there's certain processes that you still need to do anyway before you can get to that point, which one of them we'll be going over real quick, which is the judicial orders that has to be sent out to the colonists. As notice, well, not even notice, actually orders. They're actual orders. So when I was saying earlier, will they acquiesce automatically and just fall to their knees to Moroccan law upon the initial challenge? Probably not. This is the reason why we're gearing up to go to the ICJ, because they've already ignored, stalled, and denied all the documents, the judicial orders that were sent out by AMPAG. Keeping in mind that upon correspondence, once they sent out those documents to the colonists, those same documents with a cover letter was also sent and deposited with who? The United Nations, as a record and proof of these colonists still exercising extraterritoriality, making your case easier when you go to the ICJ. There's a strategy in this. It's checkers, not chess. Why did I say it's chess, not checkers? And so that's the reason why I was explaining what I was explaining on the call with you in your body on the call the other day, in terms of the operate as a Negro in the meantime, in between time, till we get to the certain point where we need to get to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have the capacity of to assist your people, unless you don't have certain things in order. And that's what we're dealing with right now. That's what we're going over today, because we're talking about the national trust. Aside from acceding to your treaties, you got to write up legislation. See, just acceding to the treaties is not the only aspect. You see, it's a lot of work. Just acceding to the treaty is not sufficient. There's another step to that, which is called the constitutional processes, which means once you accede to the treaties, now you got to enact legislation internally to accept the treaty as your internal law, and then deposit that with the United Nations. So you think you're going to be going through all these processes, establishing your national trust, establishing your state ID, establishing your, putting together your certificate of live birth, your license plates, etc., and at the same time deal with the pain points that the Moors, that several Moors may come to you with. Trust me, they will come to you with them, because they have come to us with it, and we had to reject a lot of people reluctantly, but we had to, because we had to make a choice. If either we're going to stop what we're doing and help these people, or we got to continue going. We got to continue going. We'll get to the point where we can now focus on the people, but right now we got to focus on the state. Islam, does that make sense to everybody? And are there any questions in regards to what I just said? And did I answer your question, good brother?
Brother, definitely. You know, it's just, you know, but like I said, you definitely answered the question, brother, as far as the interim period. Appreciate that.
Well, it sounds like you had you have some reservations. Let's speak on it.
No, it's not a reservation. It's just, you know, what they say in bringing aid to the people while we're, you know, collectively eruditing ourselves, eruditing others on the processes and creating the states, you know, it doesn't stop, you know, the belligerent entities on what they're doing, you know, even though a lot of it is paper genocide, but yet they're still, you know, actively acting out their position based upon, you know, their own intent. So those things are still happening. So as we're doing to make everything what they say successful in that transition, you know, to make everything smooth, you know, for those just things that, you know, either we all know that we can assist, or those things are just dealing directly with those that are part of the state, you know, but, you know, just the interim period as far as, you know, the attacks that the people them are receiving, you know, to aid. And definitely, you know, that it's going to come with competency and knowing of these established treaties and agreements that has been done internationally. So, you know, that is definitely going to be the understanding and the key. Yeah.
Well, you know, you got to remember we're far behind. We're behind. We're way far behind. It's long overdue. We're 200 years behind, man. Now we're playing catch up.
It's long, brother.
You know, we're playing catch up. That's the part. Heinz catch up, right? And unfortunately, you got to make a decision on which way we must go. These things happen the right way the first time. And to do so, we have to kind of like put pain points and put issues to the side to focus on the state. Because focusing on the state is focusing on decolonization. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal is decolonization. And in doing so, we can solve all the problems, all the across the board for all the nationals, even NAPCAs or NBCs, Negroes, Blacks, and Coloreds, including even white people. All the peoples are within Morocco. Because the goal, once you establish decolonization, you have to institute reforms. That's what we want to get to. So we'll solve the problem across the board. You can also look at it from this regard. Whatever age we have, that's how long we've been dealing with it, right? So we can't deal with it for another 6 months or so until we get to where we need to be. Also keep in mind that, yes, there's paper terrorism and there's a lot of negative things and, you know, wicked things that they are practicing upon us as a people, but it's not Africa, right? Even with all those attacks that you talk about, any Black person can go get a decent job, go get an education, go get a decent job, or start their businesses and become millionaires, right? America has all the rich Black people. So how bad are they really attacking us? Well, when you say paper genocide, that's you know, a heavy one, because it's dealing with this with the hypothecation of our land. But also at the same time, it's not like you're subject to the projects either. You can come out the projects and you can go make something out of yourself. If you were to focus on self and get things done for yourself instead of gangbanging and drug dealing, which was instituted by them, another attack. But we don't have to subject ourselves to these types of many of these attacks. We can go in a different direction. We just choose to become it. We choose to become the drug dealers. We know that we didn't bring the drugs in. That's an attack. War on drugs. But do they also show up with guns to your head and say you have to sell drugs? No. We go in that direction. So a lot of it is on us. Just as well, we can go in the other direction and be upstanding citizens, taxpayers, quote unquote, and have a decent life like a lot of Moors do. but you'll still be subjugated, and we don't want to be subjugated. And I'm saying too much, but I'm at the end of the day, all I'm saying is the fight that we have in terms of establishing the integrity of domains, so that then we can establish or bring about a speedy decolonization of our land, is not too far apart from where we're at today. We're so much more closer today than we've ever been in centuries, even during the time of the prophet. So when we talk about invoking treaty provision and forcing the colonists to their obligations to these treaties, Article 26. Article 26. Brother, read Article 26 for me, please, and start with the title.
Islam, Article 26, Pacta sunt servanda. Every treaty in force is binding upon the parties to it and must be performed by them in good faith. Article 27.
No, period. I was highlighting Article 26.
Oh, just 26? Okay, I got you.
We are going on to the others, but I'm telling you to hold on. Let's examine Article 26 real quick. Pacta sunt servanda. Agreements must be kept in good faith. Promises must be kept. One of the rules of the game. Travel, carry is called by the referees. Pacta sunt servanda is called by the referees. Who are the referees? The United Nations and the ICJ. If our consular court does not prevail, they have to uphold the treaty provisions, and they have to do it in good faith. Who got to do that? Any contracting state. It's not limited to the United States. We have to do that. Brazil, China, Panama, Costa Rica, Russia, France. Now, we do have belligerent states out there, such as Russia, that violate principles, but this is where the ICJ and the United Nations come into play. This is the reason why Ukraine has taken Russia to the ICJ, and 42 countries or 42 nation states across planet Earth have become a part of that case on behalf of Ukraine under the Declaration of Intervention, under the principles of erga omnes parties, to basically gang up on who? Russia. So it's 42 countries outside of Ukraine who's ganging up on Russia based on their belligerence under erga omnes parties. That's the reference point that we're using to gang up on the United States. Erga omnes parties. Under a Declaration of Intervention document that each state must type up and present to AMPAG, so the AMPAG can use that as part of their discovery documents to present it to the ICJ. And when we beat them at the ICJ, all the states that has been part of the erga omnes parties, class action lawsuit, they will gain the benefits of the judgment. Okay, you can go on to Article 27. No, I'm sorry, not, I'm sorry, 27.
International law and observance of treaties.
No, that says, hold on, brother. It says internal law.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Internal law and observance of treaties. A party may not invoke the provisions of its internal law as justification for its failure to perform a treaty. Rule is without prejudice to Article 46.
Okay, so the United States cannot come with, or according to our Constitution, these people are citizens. According to the amendment, the 14th Amendment, these people are corporations, and so therefore they fall under our ownership as corporate persons. And so therefore, we don't have to listen to that provision. Or really, Article 27, a party may not invoke the provisions of its internal law as justification for its failure to perform a treaty. That rule is without prejudice to Article 46. So they can even try that one. We got to understand the rules of the game if we're going to play the game. So if we know this ahead of time, then we don't have to worry about, oh man, what if they try to come up with the 14th Amendment and all this legislation that they have enacted? What if they try to use that to circumvent the treaty provisions? Well, Article 27 says you can't. Next, any other questions? You see, there's rules of the game. All right, I'm going to skip all the way down from 27 to 8. Any other questions, any concerns, comments in regards to what we've went over thus far?
Islam, brother, I'm looking at the chat. I see 2 questions there. I think it's regarding what we're covering right now.
Okay, what's the questions? Let me take a look. Moors, you guys could just chime in and ask. You don't have to put it in. I don't pay attention to the chat. Okay. Okay, someone is saying that the problem is the United jurisdiction whatsoever to handle any controversy concerning pursuant to the people Francis letter. Okay, all right. That's not accurate. That's not correct. That's a misconcept. That's misinformation. First of all, can someone, let's start with this. Can someone prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that Pope was actually, that letter, the motu proprio, was actually written by the Pope or the Pope's attorney and was delivered to the United Nations agents? Can anyone prove to me that letter is absolutely a thing? Never ask that question. I always get crickets. You prove that. Point number.
When you say a thing, would you mean that if it was actually recorded in the Unified Common Law System Grand Jury of Maine? And regarding that, that's what you're referring to?
Well, not necessarily in Maine. That's where they supposedly had deposited it or whatever. I'm talking about, is it a real letter, period? That's just what I'm saying. Is it a real letter that was written and put together by the Pope or the Pope's attorney? Just simple as that. Is it a real letter? Or is it a fiction? And there's a reason why I'm asking this.
Right. I would say it would be as it stated what it says, a civil order. It didn't mean that it was, one is binded to it, doesn't say they're binded, but it's a civil order based off of the corporate Rome Corporation and its, Vatican City States, which is, London, Switzerland, District of Columbia, The Hague and all of these places that are attached to it. Just pretty much almost like an order, maybe a prelude to tell them, hey, our operation is pretty much under scrutiny. We're, to close down in a sense, because we know they speak with a forked tongue, but, at least something was put in the public notice as far as any indemnity, that was tied to them prior to the motu proprio that was also entered in the public record the year before.
Okay. Well, I've
Islam, brother, if I may add to that, in relation to the question you asked, when one has a local domestic matter dealing with and they want to put something on the record, they will file a copy within the local venue and get a file true test copy. That stamp validates the document as being within their supposedly judiciary system. And so the only thing on those civil order between 2013 and 2014 that has been seen by most, if not all, is the document of certificate of service, which is the green receipt. But to say it is something that came from the Pope, there is no stamp or nothing validating or authenticating that this is something from the papal city of Italy, of Rome, should I say. Yeah, that's so. So based on that question, if a resounding answer should be given, the answer would be no, there's no validation to the document being coming from the Pope himself.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. That's basically where I was getting to. I appreciate that. So now let's assume for the sake of argument that it is a valid document and it has been handed over to the various departments and agencies, etc. Keeping in mind, I read this document like 3 times back in 2014, 2015. We're in 2023. Have they adhered to the orders? No. They're still continuing their belligerence. Why? Because the only people who have the power to shut this down are the Moors, period. They come under the authority of Moroccan law. Guess who else comes under the authority of Moroccan law? The Pope, the Holy See, the Vatican. They all come under the authority of Moroccan law. I proved it on the last call, or the call prior to that. In the preamble of the Act of Algeciras, the preamble of the Treaty of Madrid. Then we make the point that the Pope was the middleman between the signatory powers and the Sultan when the Sultan did not sign the treaty, and they asked the Pope to go to the Sultan and find out what's going on. And the Pope is who approached the Sultan. Your Majesty, are you going to sign the treaty? And he still didn't sign it, and it's still in full force. So the question here says, the problem is the United Nations has no jurisdiction whatsoever to handle any controversy concerning Moors. That's not true. Partially not true. Because it's called a compulsory jurisdiction. We have to give them the jurisdiction. They don't have, that being the case, which is the partial part of it that's true, is that no, they don't have no jurisdiction over any state because they're an organization anyway. The states have to petition the United Nations, and in doing so, give the jurisdiction. That's why you petition them. That's why they can't just jump in and help Negroes who are being brutalized in the streets by the police brutality.
That's the same thing as us going into their courts, giving them jurisdiction.
That's right. But in this case, we're talking about common law. We're talking about, if you're talking international law, you're talking common law, you're talking nature's law, you're talking about Moroccan law. Because international law as it operates and as it stands today is an offshoot, a remix of the Moroccan treaties. All the provisions, or should I say the general provisions, which is the instructions at the end of every treaty, carry the same language as the Moorish treaties. It all comes from Moroccan treaties, Moroccan law. So we have to petition the United Nations to come in to settle the dispute. They don't have the right to just impose. States don't have the right. A state does not have the right to intervene in the internal affairs of another state. Article 7 of the Montevideo Convention. But if a state don't have that authority, neither does the United Nations, obviously. But this is where you have to petition them for them to come in and assist you with helping with a dispute. I hope I answered that question. Someone else, it's the same person actually, Osaru. The solution is create a Moorish living estate and trust and file in the county of your domicile for safekeeping, and you'll get a receipt, which is called a certificate of deposit pursuant to 18 USC 8. This protects your security interest and your strong name and bounds everyone you contract with no constitution and treaties pursuant Article 3, Section 4, Article 4, Section 1, and Section 4, and let us not forget Article 6 of the Constitution either. Old paradigm concept. Old paradigm concept. Let's examine it. The brother stated that the solution is create a Moorish living estate and trust. Keep it in mind that the discussion that we're having here, that we've been having, based on the solution, is to establish a state with 3 branches of government. So you got one group of Moors who've established a living estate and trust and filed it in the county. Then you got this group who established 3 branches of government and deposited their constitution with the United Nations. I ask questions for the floor. Who would have full powers as found in due form? Who would have more authority? The group who established the trust, or the other states who enacted 3 branches of government through their constitution has been ratified and deposited, and now they are an autonomous state. Which one makes more sense as the proper solution? I yield the floor.
Well, the probate court is still the custodian. They was the one that hypothecated the birth certificate, so that situation has to be addressed.
Hold on, brother. Hold on. Long time out. That wasn't a question. I asked a specific question, and I'm requesting a specific answer with all due respect. 3 branches of government with a deposited constitution or a living trust filed in their county courts. Which one has more power? Or at least just sounds that it has more power, even if you don't know the inner working. Anybody?
It would be the states.
It's not a one versus the other. It's not a one versus the other. When you understand the estate, if you taking control of the estate, you taking it from one place and claiming it in another place. So it all tying together. But if you just create a state, and if you don't never address that probate issue, you still gonna die and be probated.
Also, as an unsecured creditor,
This is
as an unsecured person who they can go in to your bank account and take your stuff. Straight like that.
Interjection.
Islam, well, if the 3 branches of government makes it lawful across the board, then I would assume that it would be the one that would operate as the executive, judicial, the 3 branches of government.
What happened to the right of self-governance?
Well, that's without a doubt. The brother is saying, but I was trying to get back to the brother's point. You were saying that, could you repeat that again, brother? Because you mentioned something about the probate and all this, and continue. Can you repeat that again?
Oh, peace and love. I just noticed that's a Saru. What's happening, brothers? New head. Anyway, what I was saying was, yes, if by the birth certificate and the situation already occurring in probate, and they are being the custodians of the estate, we was already probated from birth, and they are the custodians of the estate. So even though we establishing our new Moorish estate and the allodial claim to that estate, it still have to come out of the probate process only through one or 2 ways, which is the will and the trust, by what he's referring to, one way or the other, or it'll still be probated when you die. Like, who's going to stop the state from making claims to your asset?
Your state. And so part of the process in establishing your state government is to establish your national trust.
Can I enter?
That's where all your property gets transferred into. You don't establish a trust under their jurisdiction. You establish the trust within your newfound jurisdiction. If you establish it within their jurisdiction and utilize their county courts, you're subjugated to.
It's not in their jurisdiction. It's only deposited for safekeeping. Therefore, it goes on the wire, so everybody knows to get their hands off of your stuff. It secures the security interest in your name.
Fair enough, I got you. Okay, fair enough, I got you. So with that said, would it prompt establishing a national trust within your own state government and transfer it into that trust?
What it does, it makes you the executor of your estate, therefore giving you the right to self-governance, right? Because you've been contracting since your 18th birthday, not knowing and giving away all your stuff through contract. So once you correct the status and once you secure all your assets, now you have the right to govern and administer those assets pursuant to you, because now the treaties and the Constitution protects you. But if you're unsecured and you don't own the quote unquote ass that you sit on, okay, then when these people come, you have no protection. Now, I'm not saying this out of just theory. I'm saying it as on boots on the ground, okay? They cannot come for you. They cannot come for you because like they tried to come for me and they cannot come for you, my brother.
I understand what a trust does. What I'm trying to make clear here is that there's nothing on planet Earth, especially as it relates to the Moors, that's going to trump establishing your three branches of government. And then through your three branches of government, you establish your national trust in which you bring all of your property out of the United States jurisdiction.
Yeah, brother, I don't have to give away nothing to one person to take control of.
Islam,
You're asking me to give my trust and all my assets over to sign them over to you.
Islam, brother.
That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy
No,
to me.
Islam, brother. Can I just interject?
Brother, everybody
that
hold on.
That sounds crazy, bro. I'm just saying that's crazy to me.
Everybody hold on. If that sounds crazy to you, good brother, good, fair enough. And you have your right to self-determination. You may do things as you see fit. Over here, we're talking international law, statehood, and our national trust. That's just the bottom line. The brother that was saying Islam. What was your point of interest, good brother?
Islam, brother. Like I said, if we could just keep the respect, because
that's what I would like.
Both of you brothers is saying valid points, and I'm just saying on the fact that both of you brothers are making crucial points, and I'm hearing what the brother's saying just to protect yourself intermediate while the states are being created, because I'm sure he's thinking that everything now is going to be protected under the state, not knowing that the legislation is going to provide that same autonomous preservance, and that's going to be us collectively coming together to make sure that these legislations are securing the people in total. So let's not just but going back to what that other brother was saying, this goes back to almost the question that I was asking, an intermediate period until we collectively can say, we know where we're all located. We're at this state, we got this group here. Now we can come together and say, okay, this state here is now, making the claim, the state is here. So like I stated, both of you brothers, to me, it sounds both ideas are crucial. One sits fitting for an intermediate. The other, once we're all collectively and conscious how to create the states to now bring that effects into the state to protect it under the state and whole, that is what they say the total grand security, under each one having, of course, their own, direct autonomy to their own effects.
If I may add, Brother Abdul, if I may
hold
add
on,
quickly.
hold on. Let me get this point out. With that being said, if that's the brother's point, then I'm in agreement. If his point is that it's in the interim for the protection of for your self-protection in the interim until we get to the point of finally forcing decolonization. What I'm not going to accept, however, is that which is the impression that I received, is that it trumps establishing your three branches of government. It does not. It does not. You can't show and prove that. You may show and prove that it may have worked for you in your individual.
Did not,
brother. You're not gonna have this thing where I'm talking and you're gonna be cutting me off, and you're talking and I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna allow you to speak, and then you're gonna allow me to speak. Islam, and what I'm saying is that the state, there's no other way on planet Earth for Moors to gain their salvation and to reclaim their vast estate other than through your three branches of government and consular court. In that way, and in that way only, page 202 of the France versus United States case. In the interim, yes, we can utilize other processes for our self-protection, but it still falls down to, you as an individual in your personal capacity. The state deals with all the nationals. with the assistance of all the nationals. It's a unified front versus an individual process. And that's the point that needs to be made clear. That is not the solution. The solution and the answer to the test is our three branches of government, not trust. Many more has got trust all over the place. That's what we have. That's all we have right now for our proper protections. But we still have legislators enacting legislation against us. Whereas we're supposed to be the legislators enacting legislation against them. And it only happens through your three branches of government. And that's the bottom line. That's what these classes and these discussions are all about. And that's where it would remain. If we're talking about an intermediate operation, okay, fair enough. But no one is going to come on here and tell me that any other process would trump your three branches of government. That's ridiculous. Go ahead, your brother Nasir.
If I may, brother, if I may, real quick, please.
Go ahead,
What I'm trying to speak to is the connection with what both of you are saying.
Islam, there's an echo. Islam, brother, Islam, there's an echo.
Excuse me? What's happening?
There's an echo.
Islam, brother, not to cut your wisdom, but a lot of people got the mics off, so that's leading to an echo, so we can't hear what you're saying. So we'd ask that everybody mute their mics while the brother's speaking.
Thank you, dear brother.
Okay, basically, to make a long story short, these states are administering our estates as government. So the overall goal is to take back government so we can administer our own trust. It's a trustee relationship. That's how they have been probating us, through a trustee relationship. So everything is still trust. When you look up the ICJ, what do they deal with? They deal with estates and trust. All of this is estates. It's the Moorish estate that we're talking about. So whether it's individual or it's us formulating government to take it all back out of their hands, that's what we're doing. But it's still individual estates. That's the connection.
Islam.
If Islam, brought, if I may say,
yes, Nasir, brother Nasir.
Yes. In respect to what the brother is saying, which is your point is valid, because independently we should all learn the principle of trust, because that's what's going to protect your immediate assets to pass on through your years. But let's look at law and history. The colonizer came here, proclaimed that the land was vacant, and so established their government and put themselves as trustee, especially in the Act of Congress 1871. Okay, so we got to look how things are now and where we want it to be in the future. So let's say you create your independent trust, as you just point out, highlight, but then you have no heir. Now, according to document, it said that if there's no heir to your estate, it will be placed in the hands of a trustee until a competent heir can be brought forward. Which hand or which trustee hand would you want your estate to be in the event there's no heir? Would you want it to fall in the hands of colonizers who have been acting as vagabond and everything, negative towards the Aboriginal people? Or would you feel more competent and comfortable that your estate placed in the trustees responsibility of someone of your own nation? In the event no heir shall come forward, then that estate can pass on to another more. You see the point I'm making? So both parties are making relevant point, but we've got to look at the bigger picture. Yes, we have a government official that can handle affairs of our vast estate, but independently we still have to manage and govern our independent assets. I hear.
And with that said, your brother, governing your personal affairs in your individual personal capacity through a trust is better than even what I was saying earlier. So there's no disagreement there. All I'm saying is that when you establish your state, now when you establish the state, you establish the national trust, and you transfer now your that is in the, because the brother said it's not in United States jurisdiction, it's in someone's jurisdiction, your own jurisdiction, so that nobody on planet Earth can touch it. And that's the ultimate goal in which, where we're going with this. So his point is understood. What we cannot have though, Morris, is a communication breakdown. We got to respect each other. We you yield the floor, and then you have your point of interest. So you can't overtalk people. That's not cool. That's not fair. We got to get away from that as Moors. We got to be able to have dialogue as men and women without disrespecting one another by interrupting and doing these types of things. We got to give each other the floor to speak. Someone has a point of interest. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, Islam brothers. This Kirk Palmer Bay. Having your own state is there's nothing like that. It is the key to all the issues that we face. It is the key when you have your own state, because whenever you go to the court, what do you hear them always say? State, are you ready? It simply shows that you need your own government. You need your own government to fight for you, regardless. You can't, even if you set up your trust and all this and all that, it boils down to the same thing. Your state, your government, no matter what. So yes, establishing your government is always the key. Yeah, the individual, on the individual level, is cool. You know what I'm saying? But the individual have to come together and form the state. We have to do that. For sure. The security is in the collective, isn't it?
That's correct.
Islam.
You can't trump that. Because
absolutely, brother.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. In agreement.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I have a point of interest.
Well, the way I see it is simple, because the law is for those who are unable to govern themselves. So as becoming government, we have a simple responsibility to take care of the people. So all of the subjects, so to speak, or the people that's incapable of handling, or for whatever reason, not administering their own estates, the role of government would be to do that, which they are doing. So our role as de jure government is to replace the responsibility of the motherfuckers that ain't been administering our estates correctly. So it's still all about trust and the state relationship. Even the courts, like I said, they are in place to administer estates.
Yes,
that's what it all boils down to.
I agree with you, because I've been through the system and I see how they do it. And I'm gonna tell you something, because I put my estate in individually trust, so that kind of throw them off. And I'm gonna tell you this. That's anytime you block them from that trust, they are always trying to figure a way to see if they can circumvent what you did. And I always notice that with them. So you got to stay up on your game. But when you establish your state and you put everything in your state, they can't overstep that boundary, because now they have to deal with you as a state, as a government. You see, it's like this. That yes, they rogue on certain level, they are rogue. But it's like, if there is a national from a different state come here, they have to go by treaty laws now. You can't just, you can't just step over boundary and do whatever you want. If the government enact the treaty laws, they have to abide by that. You see? So I still believe in that our state is key to all our salvation. Our state and set up our national government is the key to all the problems that we face. Because then we won't have to rely on them for anything. That's when you get true independence.
That's right.
When you don't have to rely on them. Because if you don't have to rely on someone and you don't need that person, can he take advantage of you? No. He can't take advantage of you because you don't need him. So it's like when the two parties come together, it's equal because you don't need them anymore. The whole idea. is like the wazir said. The key is the land, and we have to decolonize. We have to decolonize. We either gonna do that or just leave them alone. Because no matter how you look at it, if you don't decolonize and they still get to rule your land that you stand on, then you're still in trouble. But the idea is to decolonize.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? You have to decolonize, because that's what our treaty said. That's what our treaty said, and we must do it.
It's an obligation.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
And this is the point that I was trying to make, was by doing that action, you actually now hold these people to their obligation. The Constitution and the treaties is to hold these people, these foreigners on your land, to their obligation for you.
And I
That's
agree
where
with
it
you.
starts. That's where it starts. If tomorrow morning you can't stop the onslaught of what's coming at you, because you don't own the ass that you sit on, because estates are states and they're used interchangeably, like the brother just mentioned about going to court. Is the state ready? So we can go and take this defendant's estate. We're going to go into his estate. We're going to go into her estate, and we're going to take things. Is the state ready? So these words are used interchangeably. And if you can't stop the onslaught of these people coming at your front door by securing every interest in your name and your family name, then that's where the problem begins at. And we can't even begin to collectively come together if we can't stop the onslaught stopping at the front door, because now collectively we can all hold them to the obligation. That's what we call getting them off of the land. Right?
Now,
that's what I'm saying.
That's
what I'm saying. But if we want to overlook, any of those things, right? Then how can we deal with the onslaught that's coming to us? Right? They can decide to do the dirtiest thing to us tomorrow morning, first light. And on an international level, we're not able at this point, right, to be able to summon that help. However, there's things that we can do, studying and showing ourselves approved right here, right now, that can secure anything that we have an interest in, and hold these people to the obligation of doing what you tell them to do.
Well, you can't do that without the three branches of government and having full power.
I've been doing this in practice in real life, because I've been fighting these people straight hard for 5 years. They tried to put me in jail. They tried to give me the psychiatric evaluation, the whole nine. I'm saying I did this and I stopped it.
Islam, but you stopped it for yourself. We're talking about a collective approach. We're talking about a collective thing, not an individual thing. But
but if anybody overlooks that, you're saying that you're turning away Moors because they're coming with baggage. This is how you stop the baggage.
Okay. Right. And in defense,
hold on, more. You got a class here. I've got to get back to the class. All right. Discussion upon the class.
All right.
And we can definitely, because what I usually do, the way I operate, I finish up the class and then I open up the floor for discussion, and this can be the discussion. I don't want to interfere with I want to finish the class first at least. So please hold that thought, write it down so that you don't forget. And when I finish the class, I'm gonna open up the discussion again, and then we can get back on that, because that's an important point. And I hear what you're saying, and I think that it's germane, and it's something that we probably do need to discuss. And this is why Moors need to come together, put their heads together as body politics without emotions, right? And start discussing different ways of operating. But in the meantime, in the interest of time, allow me to finish this class, and then we'll open up the floor for further discussion as it relates to the topic that we were just covering. Is that fair enough, Morris? Islam. So I want to move on to Article 80, and then we'll get back to the discussion. So it's the registration and publication of treaties. And remember, according to this convention, and according to international law, treaties can only be invoked by states. Only states can be parties to treaties. That's just the bottom line. That's the rules of the game. It doesn't say trust in here, and it certainly doesn't say individuals. It says states. The state is who has the power to invoke treaty provisions upon another state. It's a trust that's not doing that. It's the state that's doing that. But the state, you can consider the state to be a trust. The Constitution is a trust. Between who? The state, the sovereigns of the state. So the ones who enact the constitutions are the Constitution are the executors. The government officials to oversee the operations of the government are the who? Trustees. And the posterity, those who gain the benefit from it is who? The beneficiaries. It's a trust. An international law agreement. A trust amongst us all as a people. We came together to enact this Constitution for our salvation, for our protections. And so it says treaties shall, after their entry into force, be transmitted to the Secretariat of the United Nations for registration or filing and recording as the case may be, and for publication. So after their entry into force, it needs to be transmitted to the Secretariat, meaning promulgated to the Secretariat, meaning put on the record with the Secretariat for registration or filing and recording as the case may be, and for publication. What does it mean by publication? It means that they publish it to all the other member states. So that now all the member states would know of this particular treaty and the parties and the party states involved in the treaty, who are the contracting states who are part of the treaty. That also which also lets them know that they have the opportunity or the right to accede to the treaty if they so desire. The designation of a depository, too, the designation of a depository shall constitute authorization for it to perform the acts specified in the preceding paragraph. Right? Then we're going to go to Article 82. Ratification. The present convention is subject to ratification. The instruments of ratification shall be deposited with the Secretary General of the United Nations. That's the depository, is the Secretary General of the United Nations. These are the instructions. This is the rules. These are the rules. We have to follow the instructions. We have to follow the rules if we are to be recognized internationally. And that's not to say that the United Nations necessarily recognize us, because they can't. They're an organization. They cannot recognize a de jure state, which is why they don't have no jurisdiction over our states. Ascension, Article 83, Ascension. The present convention shall remain open for accession. So it remains open forever for accession. 100 years down the line, another state can come online and accede to this treaty by any state belonging to any of the categories mentioned in Article 81. The instrument of accession shall be deposited with the Secretary General of the United Nations, which appears somewhat contradictory, but because as far as it relates to acceding to treaties, it goes to the treaty section, the Office of Legal Affairs. But the treaty section in the Office of Legal Affairs is a section within the Secretary General's office. Islam, and then you got entry into force. So that concludes the Vienna Convention on the Treaty of Law of Treaties. Then I want to go back to the other document, the model instrument document, which is the Ascension document. We're almost finished, so then we can open up the floor so we can continue with the discussion. So the Ascension is made by, or to be signed by, the head of state, head of government, or the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So here we go with the same templated type of document, right? Whereas the bracket, title of treaty, convention, or agreement. was bracket concluded, adopted, open for signature, etc. at bracket date. This is a template, plug and play. Now, therefore, I, name and title of the head of state, head of government, or minister of foreign affairs, declare that the government of bracket, the name of your government in that bracket, having considered the above mentioned, put the treaty, convention, or agreement in the bracket that you're acceding to, accede to the same and undertakes faithfully to perform and carry out the stipulations therein contained. In witness whereof, I have signed this instrument of accession at your capital address on the date, and then you sign it. So how would it read? So it would read, whereas the treaty, the title of the treaty, okay, so let's say whereas the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1836, was concluded, adopted, so you would say adopted, for signature, etc., at your Capitol building on July 3rd, 2024, 23, whatever. Now, therefore, I, Abdul Smith Bey, head of state, or Amaru Il Hiram Bey, Minister of Foreign Affairs, declare that, so let's say the minister, because your Minister of Foreign Affairs is the one that you want involved, he's that office is the one that you want to deal with this particular function of the government. It's dealing with foreign affairs. So it would go, now therefore I, Amaru Il Hiram Bey, Minister of Foreign Affairs, declared that the government of Alodia Morris Parade in Monte, Georgia, having considered the above mentioned Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1836, accedes to the same and undertakes faithfully to perform and carry out the stipulations therein contained. In witness whereof, I have signed this instrument of accession at 619, I forgot, I don't have our address memory. Dobbs Park, I can't believe I forgot it. It's on the tip of my tongue. On such and such date. You sign it, put it in an envelope, send it to United Nations. Initially, you want to accede to at least to 33 treaties. We're going to go over those real quick. You want to accede to 33 treaties initially. So therefore, you would have 33 accession documents. You're not going to put them all in one document. You're going to have one accession document for each one of those treaties. And you're going to mail them all out separately. AMPAG knows about that. Maru knows about that. They had to go through that process. Islam, and that is your accession document. It's just as simple as that. It's just plug and play. But what you don't know, you don't know. Right? So what are those, where is it? Where is it? Oh, right here. Okay. Okay, that's our government tag. We'll go to that in a second. Okay. Let me make this bigger. Or zoom in. Come on. Where you go? Why is this thing not zooming in? Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, move to the side for me. Okay, so I have a delay here. Oh, shoot. Excuse me, y'all. Come on, come on. Slow down. What are you doing? This thing going crazy. I apologize. Y'all see how this thing going all over the place? All right. Let's try it again. Ah, come on. Excuse me. Thanks for your patience. Hold on one second, y'all. Let me try to gain control of this thing. I don't know what it's going. Look at it. It's just doing whatever it want to do, just like the colonists. Okay. All right. Now I need to center it. Okay. There we go. Okay. So this document you would receive from Sister Nova. So when you check off your first box, which is the secretary, the sovereignty and independence. Remember, there's three principles: sovereignty and independence, integrity of domain, economic liberty without any inequality. That's ultimately decolonization, economic liberty without any inequality. To get there, you have to go through the due process, which is first you establish your state, then you establish your laws and all the things that to govern your state in the colonies. That's basically what we're discussing now. We haven't even gotten to the legislation yet. So when you check off the first box, sovereignty and independence, you come in contact with Sister Nova, which is the Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs for AMPAG, and she'll assist you with these documents. So, for example, you'll get one of these. It says the following is a complete list of multilateral treaties deposited with the Secretary General. Right? And then you go multilateral treaties deposited with the Secretary General as of 31 May 2019. These are AMPAG accessions. Right? So you got chapter 1, chapter of the United Nations and statutes of the International Court of Justice. They're highlighted. Chapter Charter of the United Nations, San Francisco, 26 June 1945, and the Statute of the International Court of Justice. Excuse me. So you want to see to the Statute of the International Court of Justice because it's international law. So your Supreme Court has its case laws for the United States. Internationally, the ICJ has its case laws and its statutes and such. You want to see to that. Chapter 2, Pacific Settlement of International Disputes. Revised General Act for the Pacific Settlement of International Disputes, New York, 28 April 1949. Then Chapter 3 deals with the privileges and immunities, diplomatic and consular relations. So you would accede to Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations, Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic Relations, optional protocol to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations concerning acquisition of nationality, optional protocol to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes, Vienna Convention on Consular Relation, optional protocol to the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations concerning acquisition of nationality, optional protocol to the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes, Convention on Special Missions, right? Then the 10th one is optional protocol to the Convention on Special Missions concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes, Vienna Convention on the representation of states in their relations with international organizations of the Universal Charter, Vienna Convention on succession of states in respect to state property, archives, and debts, United Nations Convention on jurisdictional immunities of states and their property, i.e. your trust, national trust. Chapter 4, Human Rights, Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. Don't we deal with all types of racial discrimination? International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid. Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. These are all things that Moors are suffering. Convention against torture and other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment, right? Convention on the Rights of the Child. Chapter 5, Refugees and Stateless Persons, Convention relating to the status of stateless persons, what we once are, what we once were, depending on if you have enacted your constitution or not. International Convention on the Suppression of the traffic in women and children. International Convention on the Suppression of the Traffic in Women of full age. All these other conventions that I'm skipping through that does not have a highlight on it, you may still accede to those as well, but these are the main ones is all I'm saying, is all we're saying. United Nations Convention on the Use of Electronic Communications in international contracts. What else? There's a few others. So you'll be receiving these. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crimes against Internationally Protected Persons, including diplomatic agents, i.e. your Minister of Foreign Affairs, or any other officer in your state. Convention on the Safety of United Nations and Associated Personnel. All right. And finally, the last few. Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties. That's what we're going over right now. Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, so we can shut down Russia and the United States, obviously. And I believe that's it. That's it. And so you would receive this document. You can choose to, at minimum, you want to accede to all the ones that are highlighted. Otherwise, you may choose to accede to every last one of them, which eventually we are going to accede to every last one of them. But again, it's the starting point. What is the starting point? At minimum, these several treaties. Let's see what else. And so now you're dealing with your legislation, laws. So your first legislation is your constitution. That's already been discussed on the previous class. And then so we're on our website, Allodium, AMPAG's website, ampagmoxin.org. And this is some of our current legislation. We got more. We've got more still working on getting them enacted. We've got at least 6 more. So legislative act, no mandate for Moroccan nationals. That's dealing with the jab and mask mandates and all that stuff from the virus, the Chinese virus. Affirmation and trusteeship for the artificial person, which is your nom de guerre. Moroccan Plant Medicine Act, which is we're saying that our state nationals and officials have the right to utilize medicinal herbal medicinal options as opposed to just the hospital, for example, right? i.e. Dr. Sebi remedies. It also deals with the right to partake in KIF according to the Act of Algeciras, where it states that we have monopoly over KIF. What is KIF? Marijuana. So we have a legislation saying that we can smoke marijuana. That's part of the Moroccan Plant Medicine Act.
All right.
Right to establish and control.
So that everything's in place.
Mute yourself, brother. Whoever that is, mute yourself, please. Whoever that is, mute yourself, please. You guys been doing well with staying on mute, by the way. I appreciate that. It's been better today than any other time. Right to establish and control educational systems and institutions. So who enacted these legislations? Amaru El Hiram Bey, Haji, Charlemagne Colbert Bey, which was he's the former Sutra or Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Moroccan Plant Medicine Act. Brother Isaac El Hamadi Bey, he's the Qazi, Chief Judge of Council of Court, came with the affirmation and trusteeship for the artificial person, which by default all the states get because it comes from AMPAG. And all the states will get this particular legislation to enact into your state, right? And then Sister Shira Ma'at Tutin Bey, which is the matriarch of the Dalil Aziz, she put together the legislative act, no mandates for Moroccan nationals. And we've got several more that will be uploaded, and we'll cover them whenever the time comes. So enacting the legislation is another part of your integrity of domains and the operation of your government. It gives your nationals the protection that they need based on the legislation. Whenever there's a concern about anything, you enact legislation dealing with that concern. Keep in mind that legislation, how do I put this? It's much simpler than you really think, especially when you convert legislation. That's one of the main key factors in legislation and our process of writing legislation is converting already pre-existing legislation, right? So you find legislation that fits your concerns and your needs, whether it come from the United States or whoever. Doesn't matter where it came from. The point is that it's been written already for you. Now you just take it and you copy, paste, plug and play, and start converting language to fit your state. So if it's a United States legislation, it'll say the Congress has assembled, whatever, how, like, for example, this is a conversion, I believe. Let me pull it up. House of Dalil Aziz, affirmation and trusteeship for the artificial person. So it says, be it enacted by the Dalil Aziz here assembled that. I don't know if you guys can see that. Well, let's say it was the United States. The United States would have it say something like, be it enacted by the Congress here assembled that. So then you convert it to make it say the Delil Aziz. Simple. And all the other language throughout the document, wherever it says the United States, you put your state. Wherever it says American citizens, you put Moroccan national, etc., so on and so forth. Takes away from having to burn up all these brain cells trying to enact legislation from scratch. And keep in mind, legislation is usually like this one, for example, is 6 pages. It's not a short one. Right? You got to put this together, but all you got to do is convert it. Does that make sense to everyone? Do you all understand what I'm saying as it relates to converting the legislation from wherever to your state? Doesn't matter what it says. You just change the language. It could have came from Puerto Rico, for crying out loud. It don't matter where it came from. The question is the information that's in there germane to your situation or your concerns that you're trying to settle on behalf of your nationals? If it's so, then good. You take it, convert it. It says Puerto Rico, you put AMPAG. Where it says Puerto Rican citizens, you put Moroccan nationals, and so on and so forth. It's just as simple as that, Morris. It's much easier than you really think, but you'll gain that erudition over time once you get to that level of enacting your constitution and therefore establishing your states. What else am I missing? Your national trust. We were talking about the trust. You gotta put together your national trust and bring all your property into your national trust so that it can fall under the protections of your flag and seal, your state, as well as international law and Moorish treaties. You got to pull everything out of the cares of the world. What are the cares of the world? American jurisdiction into your jurisdiction. I think the brother mentioned, I don't remember what the brother said about the specific jurisdiction. Even that jurisdiction, you want it in your jurisdiction. That jurisdiction may be good, but your jurisdiction is best. Because again, it's under the protection, you control it, you govern it. And when you transfer your nom de guerre, your strawman name, whatever, into your national trust, it goes from their hands and their control to your hands and your control. But it really becomes property of the state. It's called inventory for your national trust, which becomes property of the state. And then the state allows you to allot your right to utilize the property. Don't forget that your national, your according to the Constitution, if you adopt it from us, the state pays you 40% of all the revenues that come through from the taxes, et cetera, that's owed by the colonists. 40% across the board evenly to all the nationals. The other 60% go to the state for the management of the state and et cetera. You even use it for the uplifting of fallen humanity. But you need your legislation in place. You need your national trust in place. Obviously, I'm not going deep with the national trust. I'm not an foremost expert in national trust. I'm not even a trustee. I can't be the trustee as the wazir anyway. So there's the Sayaraha, the Hajib, and a few other officials are dealing with our national trust, finishing that up. We're almost finished with that. So then you have your ID and your nationality paperwork you have to put together, the state ID. You can reach out to the good brother Hakeem Bey. Show you a rendition of ours in case you haven't seen it yet. Where is it? Oh, it's at the bottom.
Why you say you can't be a trustee though, brother?
Good question. I'm not sure. There's something dealing with conflict of interest as the prime minister or something to that degree. Something that I didn't even question because I don't mind it because I don't want to deal with the trust anyway. So I'm not 100% sure, but it deals with something with conflict of interest with you being the head of state and dealing with the national trust.
If I may add to that too, the rudder also has an outline as to each official responsibility and obligation and ethics and law. So that pretty much gives a summary.
Yeah. Exactly. So the wazir, the printer, the prime minister, the head of state can be involved in those types of activities. What is the details of that? I'm not sure, good brother. You got me on that one. But
I mean, from my understanding, as a public official, as a government official, you automatically a trustee over the trust, and the people is the
yeah,
beneficiary.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But the establishment of it,
I think it needs to be put into contents in you meaning, yeah, it's a public trust seat. So yeah, definitely as the seat. So in your private, yeah, he could be a trustee, but he's just saying as far as official oath of office, you know, he cannot conflict his office with another office that deals with, you know, conflicting issues of the post that he's at. So, you know, when he's in his private, absolutely, he's trustee of his own personal, you know. But as you were saying, brother, yes, he is a public servant to where, you know, that's where the people them now, or the public gives him the good faith as the public trustee to carry on his, you know, his oath. So outside of that, you know, anything that he does do in that position, it cannot conflict that position. So that's what the United States is doing right now, where a lot of their administrations is conflicting, you know, the oaths of where they're actually holding the posts.
Great point.
What it is as a public trustee, they're not supposed to receive compensation. They're not supposed to get paid for that position, and they get compensated well.
Right.
Right. You
and
see
remember,
what
they're dealing with a lobbyist system, so it's not even a governmental system. Remember, they're dealing with privateers and profiteers and businesses that are sitting on these boards and administration, different than the republic once they're aware that, you know, what is supposed to be sitting on those boards.
Right. Right. You see, this is what I'm talking about, the brilliance nature of Moors, man. This is why we need all the heads to come to all types of heads coming together in a body politic, organized drill society, coming up with ideas and plans and goals and discussing all these different matters. This stuff matters. This is why it's called Sunday discussion. Yes, I open up with a lesson, but we go into discussion. And I want this to continue to grow, more and more ideas, more and more points, so that we can become better and better as we go along. Iron sharpens iron. On your screen, you see the state ID. This is a rendition of our state ID. We've already began issuing out the state ID. We also have it's not on the website, but we also have government official IDs for your diplomatic immunities. And it talks about your diplomatic immunities according to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Immunities on the backside of it. And it also has your term limit, your title, etc., name or appellation. Also with that, you get what's called a diplomatic bag tag, right? That goes on your conveyance, it goes on your luggage, your carry-on. We've already discussed this, which gives the package or the vehicle or whatever, wherever it's displayed, it gives it immunities from searches and seizures. And the carrier, right, it gives it immunities from arrest and detention. These are some of the documents that you would issue out to your nationals, or should I say your nationals and or your officials. So this is a state ID.
I'm sorry, have you had an opportunity where you had to enforce that yet?
No, not yet. We're not even finished with putting it. Everybody hasn't received it. Some of the documents haven't been signed. We're waiting on the signature from the chief judge. It's a bunch of documents because we got quite a few nationals. Plus we're also finishing up. Okay, we'll be getting to that point. The judicial orders. We've got two judicial orders that will be getting sent out. We'll get to that in a second. But to answer your question real quick, no, we haven't gotten anything from it yet, and we haven't even really exercised it yet at this point. Then this is what I mean by it takes time and we got to be patient. We've been around 7 months and we still don't have this stuff. We still ain't got our crap together fully yet, but it's getting there slowly but surely. What's interfering with us a lot, most of the time, is people working. We can't. The state is not paying us. We're working for free. voluntarily. And so we can't spend 100% of our time working on the state. A lot of time is being spent on our own, should I say, financial concerns. And so we got to be patient based on that as well. So that's the state ID. And then the good brother, Brother Jazz, the brother who does the editing for the videos, he's also another graphic designer. You may reach out to him as well for a state ID or whatever, either him or Hakeem Bey. But he put this together as a rough draft, which is our license plate. Right, so you see Empire of Morocco at the top, the state name at the bottom, GV, which stands for government. We'll be changing that to GOP, and then the numbers. The Sayaraha has established a number system for our license plate, as well as she established a number system for our state ID and our national ID number, should I say. These are all the things that we got to go. This is what's called going through our varying stages of advancement. This is what's called checking the boxes. Each one of the three principles, or at least the first two, has all three of them got several boxes within them in and of itself. The easiest one is sovereignty and independence. There's only like 7 boxes. Once you get those boxes done, you don't have to worry about it anymore. But when you come into integrity of domains, there's a bunch of boxes that need to be checked, some of which are ongoing, such as legislation. Others are one-time things, such as your national trust, acceding to the treaties, your nationality paperwork. These things are one-time things. You get it done, boom, bam, you're out. But the ongoing things will be your enacting legislation, the power of the pen, enacting legislation. That's ongoing. Which brings me now to the judicial orders. We got to send out judicial orders to the United States, and deposit it with the United Nations. You send it to the United States, Joe Biden, and you also send it to the governor of the trust territory that you have reclaimed. What are those 2 documents? The first one, let's see. I should have already had it pulled up. I got started with putting this class together a little late, so there's a few things that I forgot to pull up. I usually like to go straight to it. Let's see. Where is it? Okay, so this is one. And then we got another one. That one pull up. Let me go get the other one. There's 2 of them. Oh, wrong page. Thanks for your patience. Give me 1 second here. Let me find this. I should have already had it up. Let me open this thing. Come on. Open up. Okay. Where is it? 56. Passing resolution. Okay, here we go. And this was put together by AMPAG. As you see, it's got AMPAG's seal on there. We've already converted it. I've got it in here somewhere. And in fact, it might have been this one. No, it's not this one. This is also AMPAG's. No, this is ours. We converted. So this is the first one that you send out, though. Case concerning treaty rights of Moorish nationals in Morocco. Alodia, Moorish, Paredia, Monte, Georgia, Colorado, whatever your state would be, versus United States of America, United States and state of Colorado, or whatever state that you're, trust territory that you're reclaiming. You put your seal up there where you see AMPAG seal, but it deals with, and it says Alodia, Moorish, Paredia, Monte, Colorado, Consular Court of the state. So that could also say Alodia, Moroccan, Paredia, Monte, Michigan, Consular Court of the state. It also can say Meru State Republic, Consular Court of the state with their seal at the top. You just convert it, change it to yours. We shared these documents with you at no charge. This is a 55-page document. It's a big document, and it's a serious document. Language that you've probably, you're not used to. It's not a writ of affidavit, it's a consular court order. And it's ordering the United States to adhere to our treaty rights. Why are we telling them to adhere to our treaty rights? Because they need to be adhering to our treaty rights, but there's a strategy involved in that, and that brings us to This one here, Elodia Morris Parade, Monte, Georgia, Consular Court of the State. Case concerning former Moroccan subjects and proteges in Morocco. So this particular consular court order deals with the Treaty of Madrid. That's why we sent this one out first, letting them know about our treaty rights. So then we can double back, come back around and send them this one, dealing with our rights as it relates to the Treaty of Peace, the Treaty of Madrid, plus all the other treaties, but specifically the Treaty of Madrid, Article 8, because Article 8 talks about a protected persons list. So along with this document, you will send a list of all the protected persons in your state, all the nationals, all the officials, utilizing their nom de guerre name, their strawman name, their date of birth, and their social security. Why are we using the strawman name, birth certificate, birth number, date of birth, and social security number? Because that's what the United States recognize in their system. They don't recognize your bank. They don't recognize your ID number from your state. That's your internal numbers. That's your internal stuff. You're a separate jurisdiction. In their jurisdiction, all they know is John Smith, social security number and date of birth. But John Smith had taken an oath to an allegiance to another state, a Moroccan state, and he became John Bey with another separate ID number. If you send them that, they're not going to recognize who or what you're talking about. So that's why you send them the ones that they recognize, which is your birth certificate name, date of birth, social security number, along with this particular document. And so we've already sent out this one here, case concerning the treaty rights of Moorish nationals in Morocco. And we just finished up cleaning up this one here, and we'll be sending this one out next. Right? And once we do that, we're in a much better position with the layers of protection that we need as a state, as nationals, as officials, to operate on our land while in dealing with the colonists in such a way where they must adhere to our protections according to the treaty provisions. Does that make sense? Did I make sense? Am I making sense to everyone on the line? Are there any questions at this point? And so, along with all this, every Monday at 8 o'clock, we have a roundtable with Jay Bay. He goes over certain subject matters as it relates to treaties and these various conventions and such, and how, you know, the playbook, the play-by-play, the X and O's, right? It's a huddle discussing the game plan on how we're going to deal with the colonists at the International Court of Justice. This is all part of the process that we want Moors to be a part of, competent Moors who have established their 3 branches of government that's found with full powers and good and due form, so that we can now deal with the colonists in a much more competent way, in a much more efficient way, in a way in which we can now take back the control in the governance of our empire and our vast estate by forcing decolonization. These are the beginning stages of it. It's almost as if we got a long way to go, though we're still close enough, right? We're much, 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 much closer than we've ever been before as it relates to forcing decolonization. We're so close, very close, and we just need Moors to see the light, study the reference point, make yourself approved, establish your states, so that we can gang up on the United States in a competent manner, keeping in mind that diplomatic relations, friendly relations, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, love instead of hate. This is the mindset and the spirit that we have to approach this with. We can't be in a belligerent, revengeful state. We have to be in our higher self. A revengeful state of mind is equivalent to a hateful state of mind, which means that's the opposite of love. right? Which means then you're in a lower state, in your lower self. The key here is to be in our higher self. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Love instead of hate. I hope I made sense with that. I think that I've concluded this particular class in regards to integrity of domains and the various boxes that need to be checked in the stage when you're operating your government. We can discuss further in the discussion section when I close out here the interim processes that's available to us, to include a trust, which is the most powerful one to have, actually. I will never disagree with that. So I think I've covered everything that I needed to cover in regards to integrity of domains. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. I open the floor for discussion now. We can reconvene. We can get back to the discussion that we was having about the trust, or we can go in a different direction. It doesn't matter to me. Talk to the mowers on the floor. I yield. Islam.
Islam, brother. Before we continue, I just have one question in regarding the plates that you had displayed, and I'm a big what they say character for when it comes to responsibility, and you know, each individual being responsible for their actions and how they you know, conduct, and especially when you're operating a vehicle, you know, how to operate that vehicle. So my question is to you, as far as insurance or some type of, you know, liability, you know, and I say that to, you know, one, you know, of protecting the state if the state are issuing you out these what they say instruments, and what is the protocol, or have this been spoke about the liability or the insurance to cover, you know, in case of, you know, those events?
Well, if I must say so myself, that's an intelligent question. Very intelligent question. And yes, we that's part of the process. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't mention it. Part of your national trust is to establish a insurance company. Ours is called Sankofa Mutual LLC. The specifics and the details of it, you would have to ask our Sayaraha. She put it together, but that's part of the checking of the boxes. That's one of the boxes that we have to check, is established, because in order to operate on the roads properly with your own license plates, you got to have your own insurance company, right? And
or be bonded through a trust. So it's you know, many parallels to deal with it. It is a parallel universe, but that's where, you know, either bonded through a trust, and what they say, understanding the liability coverage universally that's operating on the land, and that amount.
Islam. You're absolutely correct, and we're that's part of the process. I just forgot to mention that, but yeah, that's part of the process. We have to establish an insurance. I'm glad you mentioned that. An insurance company to protect the state, the state nationals from any accidents or anything that takes place. The insurance company would cover it. There is a premium that we would pay. It's obviously much cheaper than what the United States would charge, and there is the difference with our insurance company and the United States insurance company is what's the word I'm looking for? The account, let's just say.
Right.
Our account is empty, right? Theirs is full.
Right.
But here's the deal. Article 20 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship: any disputes between a United States citizen and their protected persons, or even a Moroccan national, for example, the dispute must be handled through consular court. And so what we're working with is the restitution checks that's to come, right?
I get that. But you know, we got to keep in mind, if there is what they say, a lawful injured party, that has to be taken into consideration, you know, meaning it doesn't matter what jurisdiction. If there's a lawful injured party, they got the right to make a claim, no matter what the jurisdiction is.
Oh no, they can make a claim. They just have to make a claim to a consular court.
No, I'm clear. I'm clear. You know,
But,
you're
right. You're right. I'm not. Yeah, you're absolutely.
If I may quickly add to that, brothers, you know, in the interim of future dialogue, I would propose bond system, as the brother just says. Reason being, with utilization of a bond, both party wins, in the sense that the bond comes to maturity. When the bond is, let's say, come to fruition, and the bondholder claim that interest, both, the bond company as well as the one who make the bond for their conveyance gain interest. So the bond can be a 10-year bond, a 20-year bond, whatever the case might be. That bond could go through the state official. That way, the state itself, as AMPAG, would invest those currency within a bonding company for a term period as contracted. And when those bonds come to maturity, the state government gain interest and the bond company also gain interest, and everyone is covered. I hear.
Islam. And I will bring that to the table. Keep in mind that I don't feel that I have explained this thoroughly, because I'm not thoroughly erudite in this particular matter. Because in my office, that's not something that I deal with. I'm strictly law, international law, and things of that nature. The Sayaraha, however, she could answer that a whole lot better. I'm just giving you the surface. But I'm not against the bond, like you were saying, and that can be brought to the table. And this is why I'm saying that we need all of our collective intelligence to come together so we can make each other better. We don't know it all. I don't know it all. That's why I say I'm not necessarily a teacher. I'm just pointing out certain things. I'm here to learn as well. I'm a student. I'm a student of the game. I will forever be a student of the game. I will always continue to study international law to become better, so that I can be a better wazir, a better humble servant of the people. You can't do that without. And so this is, so again, I don't know it all. No one on this line know it all. J Bay don't know it all. Nobody knows it all. But collectively, we bring our intelligence together. Now we can become a serious force to be reckoned with. But I hope I answered the question to a degree as it relates to the insurance and everything. That's definitely discussed, and it's on the table.
Yeah, definitely, brother. And like I said, there's many things that I'm sure many of us could add towards that, and especially understanding the bond. I have an economical background, so as far as those instrumentalities dealing with non-bearing trust accounts, I've kind of have a fundamental establishment on those systems.
Islam, brother, you would be an excellent asset to your state once you get it established, and you will. Because if you're on this call, and anyone that's on this call, that means that the time will come. Everything is time released. Nothing happens before it's time. It always starts with erudition.
What state is that you with, brother?
I'm at the New York Republic territory.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, I was brother Nasik, and anyone in this room, New York, you too, good brother. Someone contacted me. He's looking to establish a state in New York. I'll put him in contact with you all through Sister Jenna. Or it doesn't have to be just through Sister Jenna. Brother Nasik and brother Hawk, you guys can get my number from her, and
we do have your digit, but I take into consideration your obligation and responsibility. So I will choose an appropriate time if needed and when needed, and we will dialogue. But yes, whomever within this territory that are interested, we are looking for a more collective body. We did make connection with the two kindred further up north, and we have dialogue, and so far so good.
Okay, wonderful, Islam. And if you're concerned about my availability, just shoot me a text and I'll let you know what it is. As simple as that.
Absolutely, brother.
Islam.
Yeah, I wanted to add as far as some solidification of what you were saying, as far as old paradigm versus new, and connection with the conversation we was having earlier.
Islam
is the old versus new paradigm. It's the ascension, because like Brother Saru was saying earlier, we have been going about it as individuals or any kind of way we could, and claiming our nationality and claiming to be parties to the treaties, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. But it's that word stateless that we was never able to shake. That stateless word always came up. Stateless, stateless, stateless. So new paradigm, like you were saying, is more so connected with them ascensions, by us actually ascending to them through the statehood. It's making us legitimate parties to the treaty. So it's the same thing with just more enforcement. And shit, they can't deny it, because you get that word, you get away from that stateless word.
Well, let me clarify the word stateless word and how it applies to our people. Negroes, blacks, and colors are not stateless. Negroes, blacks, and colors fall under the protections of the United States jurisdiction. They're just subjugated. They're not stateless, but they're subjugated. It's
Islam, your audio went out.
They are stateless from a Moroccan empire, but they are not entirely stateless but because they proclaim Moorish identity, one without a Moroccan government, that's what makes them stateless in that category or that aspect. But
I'm just saying, in black and white, the word stateless is telling you you need a state.
I agree. I agree with that, brother. I agree with that. It's like someone indirectly telling you something without telling you verbatimly.
sorry, brothers. For some reason, see, I work off the phone and the computer. Can y'all hear me?
Islam, brother. We hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I work from the phone and the computer, and for some reason, my computer disconnect. My phone disconnect. It keeps doing that from time to time. But so yeah, so that's what happens with Moorish Americans. They're rejecting the U.S. jurisdiction, and they're saying that, but then also they don't have their own jurisdiction. Remember, I was saying earlier that they don't recognize the Bey, but they recognize the Smith. So as Abdul Smith, I'm protected under the United States. I got a social security number. I've got a driver's license. I can do all kinds of stuff. I'm just dealing with civil rights versus human rights and privileges versus rights. And, you're subjugated, but you still have a level of protection. As a Moorish American, you don't have that level of protection because you're not recognized anywhere on planet Earth as your Bey or anything else like that. And so that's the difference that I wanted to make clear. I hope that makes sense to everyone. And I hope everyone understands the point that I'm making here. You're not necessarily stateless until you start rejecting the jurisdiction. Now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Islam, does that make sense?
Islam.
I'm glad you touched on that, because earlier when the discussion was regarding filing certain things within their courts, I was gonna point out that fact and tie it all together. So I'm glad you touched on that.
Islam.
I have a question too.
Go ahead, bro.
And it kind of ties into what we were saying earlier in regards to in the interim.
Yeah.
So let's say National AMPAG has property or trust in a state that doesn't have an active state online. What will be the best route in order to secure the property or interest they have, or would it fall under the protection of AMPAG?
Was that a question or a statement? It sounds like a statement.
No, it was a question. So
Okay.
if a national AMPAG has property in Arkansas or Mississippi or Alabama in a state that's not online, would it fall under the protection of AMPAG, or would that state have to come online in order for the property to be protected?
Excellent question. No, it doesn't fall under the protections of AMPAG. It's outside of our jurisdiction. See, on the Constitution, it outlines the longitude, latitude of the territories that you have reclaimed. That's your jurisdiction. So anything outside of that, you don't really have no say so.
But then, brother, follow through with a question. If that asset is in trust and the trust is conveyed into the national trust, would it not then fall under, also take it into consideration the vast domain of the Moroccan Empire?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, as an individual as an individual state, we're limited to the Moroccan Empire. That's the reason why we're establishing the central government. So that, because the central government is what will cover. Hold on one second. Let me mute myself here. Okay. Yeah, the empire would cover the entire, all the jurisdictions. In the meantime, your independent state, Maru, AMPAG, whoever, they're limited to their specific territory that they have reclaimed. And so if you got property in Arkansas, but you're a national of AMPAG, we're gonna have to find another way. I'm not really sure what way, maybe a trust, another way to protect that property in that specific jurisdiction until a Moroccan state comes online in that jurisdiction, to then assist with this, with offering the protections of that particular property. And we can do commerce amongst each other. No different than Virginia may deal with South Carolina. Right.
Islam. I think that if you're a national here in Georgia and you got property in Arkansas, I think you will be able to protect it in the national trust, because Noble Jew Ali's trust is filed in Chicago, and we were placing property in Georgia in Noble Jew Ali's trust, cars and stuff like that, and it was being protected. So I'm sure that you could place that property in Arkansas in the national trust here in Georgia if you would say a national here in Georgia. I would say Islam.
I hear you, and I hear you where it would make sense. However, again, your territory, according to your constitution, your longitude, latitude, dominions that you have reclaimed is your jurisdiction. And that's the limit to your jurisdiction and your authority, your powers. It doesn't extend past that. So now, if you did that, you're practicing what's called extraterritoriality, right? Could we get away with it? I don't know, perhaps.
Can I add?
Not correct. Go ahead, brother.
Can I add to that, brother? What would be issued is the protection of the national would be protected under the state of his choosing. So what that does in international law, now it offers him what they say elected right to his counsel. So if there's an issue with a territory or a property that's not within the dominions of the legislation, at least now he has right to represent counsel based upon international law. As far as intercourse dealing with the United States and any effect or taxes or anything that's dealing with that estate.
Fair enough. That, I can see where that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So would the best route in the interim for that state to come online, would that be to put that in a personal trust?
The same thing that brother was indicating earlier, where there was a little misunderstanding, is that would be the interim process. And I would state that for anyone to secure their assets until that state comes online, to go to understand at least that process and think about it, not as, think about it in the sense of so above, so below. A trust is created by a grantor and two trustees. And a body, politics, or state government is created by the three branches of government. So it's the same, so above, so below. It's the principles that we need to inherit to know how to secure any assets, no matter how we're operating in the public and or the private.
Islam.
Say that, everything deals with
argument for me here.
Acronym.
What was that?
I would like to say that everything deals with the acronym of TEAT, which means treaties, estates, and trusts. The Constitution is a living trust.
That's right.
All of these, a franchise is a commercial trust.
That's right.
All of these states are trust. And so consequently, we must deal with trust, estates, and treaties, because it all boils down to that. And anyone who wants to get a basic read on that, they can go ahead and download the Trust and Estate Administration for Dummies book, and you can readily find it online.
Yeah, I have the trustee handbook, the trustees handbook, and this is actually something I spoke with the Wazir Maru about, but I wanted to present it to the floor too, just so it can be on record and I can get a further understanding. But you all were able to answer my question.
You said someone wasn't able to answer your question, so they were able to answer your question.
No, everyone was able to answer my question was answered.
Okay. Oh, okay, it's fine. It's fine.
I actually have one more question too.
The floor is open.
So I know in regards to manpower between states, what can those who have an active state who aren't an active national do to assist their state in regards to any other affairs or anything that needs assistance to?
Becoming an officer. If you're only a national, then become an officer of the state. Find a place where you resonate with something where you your skill sets can be transferred over into, and if that position is open, then take your seat in the affairs of men and help push the state forward with your expertise. So yeah, that's what I would say. Just staying as a national, you're in a passive state. As an officer, you're in an active state, and the prophet was requesting and calling for active Moors instead of passive Moors, right? So you would want to take a place in the government as an official in the government to help carry things forward with your subject matter expertise, or whatever skill set that you may possess that can assist the state to move forward.
If I may add to that, brother, remember we have the official body, and we also have the administrative body. So even though one may not deem him or herself qualified or competent to be an officer, they can still contribute to the state in a administrative capacity.
That's right.
Right. I'm speaking of, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm in the territory of Georgia, and I'm not a national as of yet, but I would like to assist in any way I can. What would be the best route for me to take in order to do so?
You'll fill out one of our applications. We'll set you up with an interview to identify your skill sets and see where you may be able to fit in, and we'll basically go from there. If there's a position, because we have positions open still, we need a RASM of nationality, which is a very important position. That's the office of vital statistics, amongst other offices. So if based on the interview, if you're found to be needed in certain positions based on your skill set, then you would take an oath and allegiance to the state. You take an oath and allegiance to your seat, and you'll become a government official of the state, and we'll get to work. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay. Yeah. So you would want to fill out. Currently, we're not taking anyone until spring. However, we can make exceptions for those who have subject matter expertise, certain skill sets that we need, because we do need certain skill sets. So
would security be a skill set that's as far as needed at the moment?
What type of security? Like cybersecurity or security?
Like, not cybersecurity, but in regards to military security.
Mufti,
Sharif.
Sharif. Yeah, we could always use Sharifs.
High demand.
It's not highly necessary. We have more pressing issues such as RASM of nationality and what's the other positions? We need matriarchs for the Dalil Aziz. Obviously, you wouldn't qualify because you're a man. Our Constitution is slightly what's the word I'm looking for? Prejudice. It's all about the women. as far as it relates to the legislative branch. Only women can be there. No man can be in that department. Whereas the mothers or the matriarchs can be in every other department. It can be a wazir, it could be a qazi, whatever. So yeah, those are the positions that we need more so than even Sharif. But no worries. I have to say, Araha, interview you to see where you may, because you may have other skill sets outside of security, but you could potentially use security, that's for sure. Especially here in this territory of Atlanta, or this part of AMPAG's jurisdiction, which is Atlanta, because a lot of our nationals are outside of Atlanta, right? So we definitely need some Sharifs within Atlanta. This is where most of the nationals and officials are, but we've got others spread out throughout the state. So
okay, yeah, I'm in Atlanta, so yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. So we could potentially use you. So like I said, we'll have you ever contacted me? Do you have my phone number or anything?
I believe I seen your email on like an old YouTube I was watching on like January the 6th, and I reached out, but I don't know if it was the correct email.
That's my direct contact. Give me a call and we'll talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in regards to what was said earlier, or the question that came up about the United Nations, and as far as acknowledgement or authority, do they even have the authority to acknowledge us like that?
No.
Okay, so my point is, we first of all, I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs for AMPAG, Michigan.
Good brother. Peace, good brother.
And
I went over your treaty. I meant to discuss that, but go ahead. I'll be calling you.
That's pretty much the point I was coming to. Although we are at development stages and we do have a lot of progress to make, the point of that treaty was to get something on record as far as establishment and acknowledgement, just something quick for them to acknowledge us and come in the joinder acknowledgement so that we know that we can move forward. Because we don't want to spend the next 2 years or year developing something and then still don't get the results.
Yeah, good brother. I agree with that. No, sir. We want to make moves and we want to have forward progress.
Right. So once we come, it could be anything. We can agree to, have a Zoom call once a month and make that a treaty. But as long as we present it to them and they got to record it, that's what I'm talking about. Forcing them to record some type of agreement within the states of Morocco.
Well,
and that need to happen ASAP.
That's where monthly correspondence with the United Nations is part of the instructions anyway. We're supposed to be doing that and corresponding with them every month. You're taking it to another level, which is an awesome level. And by the way, for the floor, so that the floor may know, the good brother put together a pretty good treaty. It looks like a treaty. It has the preamble, it has the articles, it has the general provisions, the instructions on the depository, and the whole nine. It's an excellent start. It's clear that the good brother been studying. So the wazirs have talked about it. I've been meaning to get back with your wazir to discuss it, but we've talked about it. We talked about it with Jay Bay, and we'll be in touch with you to talk about these matters further with the proper officers as part of the roundtable of this specific discussion. So that's upcoming, good brother. We do appreciate your efforts. You get a A+ for that effort. It was an excellent effort. I was impressed to say the least. So I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, wow, this brother, he put something together here. Keeping in mind that we also put together the Wazir Regional Council. So what we're looking to do is incorporate the language of the treaty that you put together for AMPAM with that Wazir Regional Council convention, which that one is also going to be deposited to the United Nations. So everything that you just said is already in progress. We've literally got the document put together to deposit it. It's like we were working on it at the same time. So now what we will do now is take what you put together and incorporate it into what was already, because that puts the WRC Council it's not in full force yet. It's still under review. just as well as your treaty is under review. So we can take your treaty, incorporate it with what we've already got with the WRC, and then enact it and deposit it, ratified, and then deposit it and promulgate it with the United Nations. So we're definitely on the same page, good brother. We appreciate your efforts, Islam.
Well, peace. I appreciate the good words. I just want you to understand that simplicity was the goal. Simplicity was definitely the goal. I just wanted to make it simple so that we can, just come in the joinder and put it to them, get it in their face. So
right. And this is why we're going to have a discussion with you about it, because we need to get your point of view as to what you were thinking, such as what you just said. Simplicity was the goal.
Right.
I would have known that until you said that. So that's why we're going to have this roundtable with you to discuss what's in the back of your mind as it relates to putting this together. And we can incorporate everything and discuss it all. This is not a one-man show, and it's not a dictatorship. Everybody is looked at as beacon of light to assist in these processes to get to where we need to get with true more forward progress, active and not passive. I ain't got time to be here 2-3 years still working on the same thing and not getting anywhere.
All right. And when we study the past treaties, you notice that the language is simple. Like it's not complex.
Yes, indeed. Awesome. Yeah. I just made that point with this particular convention. It's simple. It's just like one-liners. It's nothing complicated about it. Hell, your treaty is probably more complicated than the Vienna Convention. You had nice sized paragraphs. They got like little lines and stuff. When you look at the Montevideo Convention, that's a simple treaty. Like 13 articles, one-liners for the most part. It doesn't have to be no big complicated thing. But the reason why the Wazir Roundtable Council, Wazir Regional Council is a big one is because it's a placeholder for the entire Empire of Morocco. So there's a lot of things that had a lot of details that needed to be ironed out and considered. And that's the reason why that one is so large. And it was also a conversion, by the way.
And it's not a contrast. I mean, it's not one versus the other, because it's two different objectives. One is establishing law within the empire. The other is establishing ourselves in front of the nation, because to me, that's our biggest goal, which brings me to our second question. To my second question, which is, okay, inevitably from what I'm getting is that goal-wise, once again, it's to form the alliance and then go to the ICJ on some type of class action lawsuit or something like that.
Yeah, Ergas Omnis parties under a declaration of intervention. Yes.
Okay, well, with that being the goal, relief, we have to state a claim in which relief can be granted, correct?
Islam?
So what in that case would we actually be suing for? Or what would we be asking the ICJ in the claim against the United States or whatever? What are we suing for?
Crimes against humanity and genocide. The lowest hanging fruit.
Crime. Okay. Now ICJ, first of all, ICJ is civil court. Criminal court is ICC. So in ICJ, our claim be
correct. The ICJ is both civil and criminal as it relates to state disputes. The ICC deals with they don't deal with state disputes. They deal with criminality of the heads of state and the heads of state only, and their private and personal capacity. That's the real difference.
We gonna listen, good bro. We gonna research that further, but that's not the point. So I don't want to get into that right now. What I'm saying is, what are we suing for? Because we can't sue for fiat. We're not suing for a dollar amount, or we can't sue them for our basket state back. So what is the goal?
The goal is the relinquishment of extraterritorial jurisdiction in Morocco.
So we suing for jurisdiction.
We're suing to take back control of the whole empire. That's the point. Under crimes against humanity and genocide, and a violation of human rights and a host of other charges.
Okay, I get the goal. I just don't know if the ICJ and as far as strategic wise, if they even capable of giving us or granting what we seek in that form, because the ICJ is one arm
The ICJ won't be giving us anything. All they're doing is giving a judgment.
Right.
And then now the United States must comply by that judgment of extraterritoriality. If they do not, that's when we now petition, we move up the ranks and we petition the ICC to deal with the head of state in his personal or private capacity. So
So has that ever been, or has that been done before somewhere for reference where actual claim for extraterritorial jurisdiction was made?
Can I interject on that subject matter on the just on the basis of dealing with the ICJ? For what I've seen on research, you know, it seems like there's also a status, or you have to be a member state to that ICJ to even bring cases, you know, before the ICJ. And I noticed that out of the 193 member states that the UN have, the International Court of Justice only have 73 members, you know, that are actually a part of that, that can actually bring a case to the ICJ. So do you have you know, would that be tied into what the brothers asking as far as the cases dealing with human rights in the jurisdiction? You know, I was just wondering.
You're asking, does it tie into what the brother is asking? I'm not sure. The brother would have to answer that for you.
As far as he's stating, as far as the claims that are made to the ICJ, what's the outline? What's the ultimate claim? You stated that it was based upon extraterritorial jurisdiction and the relinquishment, you know, that was given to them or ordered since 1956. So so you know, I was just asking the brother.
Yes,
you know, I was looking at that also with the ICJ. And even though it accepts member states from the UN to their jurisdiction, but there's also a statute, or, you know, you have to submit to something else to be a member state to even bring a case there too. So
one of the things that you got to do is really what I discussed earlier is accede to the ICJ statutes. You have to accede to the ICJ statutes so that you, and then plus you have to, it's dealing with the Pacific Settlement of Disputes, which is Article 6 of the Charter, in which you have to give the jurisdiction to the state to then look at the case. But the question is, see, in 1956, Congress had already enacted a bill dealing with relinquishing the jurisdiction in Morocco. See, that's part of the evidence. That's part of the evidence. They've already enacted the bill, but it's based on whenever the president deems the time necessary or appropriate to sign the bill to then make it law. And he hasn't done it yet because the time hasn't been appropriate yet as it is now, right? And so if Joe Biden is unwilling to sign it at this moment, we have to take him to the ICJ so that the judges can pass a judgment upon him to sign the legislation that's already in place. So they've already enacted it. They're just waiting on us to make a proper claim so that they can now relinquish the jurisdiction, which means now all the governance of the empire comes back to us.
That's why, to me, the United Nations, because the ICJ being one of the 7 branches or the 7 arms of the United Nations, it's more important for us to claim our seat at the United Nations, whatever it may be, being a United States of Morocco. Once we get a seat, then we use the ICJ as an enforcement tool. Yeah. But we got to take the head of the table.
Oh, no doubt. That's what that's the goal.
That's the needs for the United, for all the provisional states to come together.
It's not happening. It's not going to happen as individual states. It's based on the central government of the United States of Morocco.
Absolutely.
That's what's going to take a seat at the United Nations, specifically the 5 permanent council members. We'll be replacing the United States. Wherever they sit at the United Nations, that they got to get their butts up, and we take that seat, which is one of the 5 security council members. What are the 5? United States, Russia, China, France, Great Britain. We got to unseat the United States and take our place in the affairs of men. And in doing so, according to the several treaties from the Treaty of Peace and Friendship on up to the Treaty of Fez, we take, especially the Treaty of Fez, we take control of all the military and all the finance and everything. The Act of Algeciras also says the same specifically. And that one is the one that prevails over all other treaties. So we take control of it over everything, not just Morocco, but the United Nations itself. So that's the goal.
Islam.
Go ahead,
so,
bro.
To avoid any confusion, any misunderstandings, it may be important to preface whenever we're talking about taking them to the ICJ, to preface it by saying that that's only going to happen if they do not respect our consular court orders.
Islam. Yes, that's correct.
Islam.
I'm already anticipating that they ain't gonna respect. So I'm looking at taking the table, acknowledgement by
Hold up, time out. Mind your language if you don't mind, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. But I'm already anticipating that they're not going to accept or just respect nothing. So like I said, the goal should be to get that acknowledgement and then enforce our orders through the ICJ.
Well, the way you feel in terms of what you think that they may or may not do, we too feel the same way. That's why we keep talking about the ICJ, because we're expecting that they won't adhere to our Moroccan laws or consular court. So if consular court does not prevail, this is where you petition the ICJ. That's the due process of law. You don't go straight to the ICJ. You first bring in consular court, mediation, arbitration, and then adjudication. If that doesn't prevail, then we petition the ICJ through the United Nations. So we don't necessarily expect that they're going to just bow down to our laws yet. They're going to put up a fight. But when we take them to the ICJ, they're going to lose at the ICJ. They're going to lose. And they're going to have to relinquish the jurisdiction.
As Islam, I think they're going to do like the three monkeys. Hear no evil, speak no evil. That's what they're going to do at first. And we have to really take...
and whatever.
Yes. They're gonna do that. They're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
So they're gonna do it. You know.
Yeah.
So we have to prepare for say, hey, this battle. Okay. You see, when we say battle now, we have to remind ourselves that the same when they were talking about. If you ever seen a documentary about the Carthaginian and when they were battling with the Romans, right?
No,
it was never really as though they say that Hannibal was battled with them and they came back and win them. It was none of that. It was a court battle. They make it seems like it was really truly a war against Carthage. You understand? But it wasn't really. It was a court battle.
Okay.
Because remember now, they got their charter from the Moors. The same Carthaginian them gave them the charter to set up Rome. And when they say after a while, when Rome was corrupt, the Carthaginian went back and pulled the charter. That's how they dissolved. They never was dissolved because said they did that on their own. They would have never dissolved. They would have continued their corruption. So so we got to watch out when we for these terms and language when we're going through the battle. We must understand exactly what that means, because we have a long fight, and they're gonna fight, because remember now, when a man a drowning, him gonna grab him on a straw. Remember that, because they had a drowning party after a while. Once we set up our central government, they become the drowning party. Regardless, because remember, we are the majority, and this is our land based on the treaty. What did it say? The treaties are the supreme law of the land, right?
It ain't based on the treaty. It's based on our consanguinity that we are the heirs. And
Yes. but treaty are the supreme law of the land. So we have the first right, the birthright.
That's right.
To the land. So
We're the
no one can
firstborn.
take that from us.
We're the
Jurisdiction can
firstborn.
never outweigh that.
We're the firstborn. You're absolutely correct.
Right. No territorial jurisdiction can outweigh that. None.
Not as long as you come with a competent claim and you come and you deal with things in a competent
Right.
manner.
I mean, long as you wake up on your claim, you file your claim, that's it.
That's why 9/10 of that's why possession is only 9/10, because it's only waiting until the true possessors come and make the
True
proper.
heir, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And we making the claim, and they know that. This is why they were trying to strike Article 15, right? From the treaty.
Correct. Exactly.
Bunch of criminals, man. We have to start treating them as such.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
when you say prepare, we're definitely in the process of preparing. That's the Monday classes. That's what I was talking about. And as a matter of fact,
okay.
Haji from AMPAG, good brother. What's your name, good brother? Minister of Foreign Affairs.
I'm Rael, William Rael.
Islam, brother. Bring everything that you just discussed and mentioned, bring it to the class Monday. That's the purpose of that class. It's a round table so we can bring our ideas and discuss all the different aspects of things. And, that's what we're doing, is preparing for the ICJ. We're definitely, that's the plan A. If they turn around and at some point they decide to acquiesce before you go to the ICJ, okay, great. But we're not going to expect that. We're preparing for them not to adhere to the Moroccan laws and stall and deny. So bring all your ideas and all your points to the, make sure you mention these things on Monday in this Monday class, this coming Monday, good bro, so we can discuss that as well.
Yeah, it just be a thing about timing, because you don't want to come off as being, you know what I'm saying? Interjective for nothing. But yeah, all of these are concerns that go through my mind.
No, bring it up, because he opens up the floor for discussions and questions, and it's always open. So don't even worry about that. Just bring it up. Let's talk about it. Let's see where we go from there. That's the purpose of it.
Those are valid questions, though. Very valid question he brought up.
Bring it up at the meeting.
Yeah, because it ain't gonna be no walk in the park with these people. You already see who they are. They violate even their own. Let me tell you what they do. Let me tell you what they do. Say you go to court and they notice that you might win 2 court cases with them. I guarantee you the third time when you come, that law, not care how much you study, because remember, they get their order from the governor. So they change the law. It's not even, I don't call that law. That's not law. You can't change law.
It's color of law.
Is something that, yes, is permanent. And that's not permanent. So they change it today. They come in, they just decide, oh no, we're not using that jurisdiction to do it. It's this one we use. So those are
Let me clarify something for you real quick, Kurt. When you're talking about legislations can also be changed based on amendments anyway, right? It's organic. You can always go in and revise legislation. So legislation versus actual common law, natural law, that's different. That cannot be changed. So I will never be able to trespass against you without any repercussions, legal repercussions, right? That's common law. That's written in stone. That doesn't.
Right, but they don't use common law.
No, they do not. That's right. They do not.
Do y'all remember what it's like being in school, and then when the teacher leave out the room, the whole class go crazy? Somebody jump in the teacher's seat and start acting like the teacher. The only thing the teacher been gone for a long time.
Bob Marley put it the best way. When the cat's away, you know what happened.
Exactly.
The man start to run the house.
That's exactly what's going on. That's a brilliant analogy. The master teachers have left, and the students are acting a fool. Now, when we show back up into the classroom, they're gonna get back and they'll just have to get back in line. But we have to do it.
But just to get to a understanding, what we're all saying here, and you could look at legislation that has been passed since 1861 to what they say 2023, everything is dealing with foreign bills of attainers. Foreign bills of attainers is a Roman tax. So that's why every bill that is being passed, you know, one is taking it as law. No, it's a tax, because every bill that's been passed, they have to fund it to now pass that on to the people. So it now, you know, what they say is a tax. So, you know, we have to look at the legislation of organic, meaning human rights, rights for the people, for prosperity, different than legislation of bills, which are another than tax, which are foreign bills of attainers, foreign bills of exchange that are plaguing the people and what the people think that, you know, are bills today. So, you know, it has to have a clear, what they say, understanding, not even between the officials, but and what they say to people. And to get back to what you guys were saying, you know, ultimately to bring remedy to the whole issue is really going to be the awareness in the grassroots of the people.
Yep.
No, we're going to be, you know, even in our initial, is going to be limited as much as we can do. The respect will come from all international communities once the awareness of the people. Then trust me, they're going to come in and aid. It's not going to be what the ICJ says, not the ICC, not the UN, because everybody's in harmony to, you know, that equal human rights.
This is why we got to set up back our de jure government, because it's de jure. And once the people know that it's real and it's tangible, like he said, the grassroots people have to acknowledge it. And once it's real and they realize they're not dealing with a corpse anymore, then they will feel more secure in their personal space.
No. They'll feel even more secure if we come in the right mindset under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice with diplomatic relations, and not as belligerents who's trying to shut down the whole world. And keep in mind also that these people across planet Earth are looking to Morocco to come back and establish these states so that we can establish or bring back the upliftment of fallen humanity, bring back peace on planet Earth, peace and security. That's our job. And the whole world knows that. So that we will be well received to the point, like the brother said, we won't even need the United Nations. As again, the United Nations fall under our authority anyway. It's just that we're coming out of subjugation. So we have to climb this mountain to get to the top. Once we get to the top, it's smooth sailing from there, baby. The whole world looking to us, including the United Nations. We went over the Resolution 1514, the language in that document. It's saying that colonization is a breach of peace and economic stability of the world. What is that saying? That the Moors being subjugated is killing the peace for the world and is messing up the economic system. This is how you look at us.
Yes, because, you know, the Moors was the one who was trying to set up the new world, establish one world government at first. That's where they get the idea from. So therefore, yes, we have to come back to the table.
That's correct. And the world is looking forward to it. And we just got to make the proper claim, and we got to do things under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We got to be the big boys, the big girls in the room, the older brothers, the older sisters, right? The original people of the land, recognizing and realizing what we have done to them. So we got to let go of what they've done to us, because we started this mess anyway. At some point, there's got to be a truce. And then we take back the governance and the control over the entire empire and put them where they belong. Where do they belong? Beneath us, as not necessarily like they're inferior to us. We're all humans, but politically they're inferior to us because our law, Moroccan law, is what reigns supreme.
Let me put it this way: we have to take back the high chair.
That's okay. Because we are the Illuminati, right? Everybody talks about the Illuminati. We are the Illuminati one.
Yes. That's why we were called high priest of Anu.
The high priest of Anu.
Yes.
It's all about us. We are the people. We're the ones. We're in North.
We the one. We are the holy cat that enlighten. When we talk about the holy cat, it goes into what you see today, what they call a Catholic Church. But we establish all of that principle, and the holy cat are the people who, when Tauti was talking about, he came from the west of the of a great empire, what they call it the Atlantis. No, it was a Catilan empire, the holy cat. Yes, and that's where even the Pope, when he came here 2013, he was mentioning, he was talking about that this is a Cati empire, and we have to know that. And when we say cat, and then we talk about the cat head, we're talking about the Moors. So we established the law all the way around. See?
That's why till today, international law finds its foundation in Moroccan law, the Moroccan treaty.
Yes.
Moors. All right, the time is it's 11:05, man. We've gone too far. But it's an excellent discussion. Brother Kirk, you brought up some excellent point. All of you brought up excellent points. Apologize for the communication issues from earlier. We seem to have that from time to time. It's okay. Sometimes we, have some misunderstandings. It's important for us, however, to be able to communicate efficiently by yielding the floor and allowing each other to speak, express ourselves, and then then it's your turn. You speak, I speak, you speak, I listen, I speak, you listen. So let's keep that in mind moving forward, Moors. However, excellent points, excellent discussion here today. I hope that I made the point clear or did a decent enough job in explaining what the current process we're going through as it relates to the operation of our states, as it relates to integrity of domain. It's very important. All of the Moors who have their states, all the Moors who have their states established, please don't forget to show up on Mondays, and whatever interest or point of interest that you may have, bring it to the table. It's an open floor, even though we're going over certain documents. And I look forward to others such as Brother Kirk and Brother Hawk and Brother Nasik to establish their states in their respective territories.
Oh yeah. There's no question about that.
Islam, you've already gotten the documents, some of the documents that you would need, since you've already got about 8 people. Keep in mind, within 30 days, you can have this done. And I'm available for any questions or concerns in regards to establishing your states. So I guess you all got my phone number now. I put it out there like that. It's already on the website anyway, so it's already public information. I already get bombarded with it. It is what it is.
Quick question, Brother Abdul.
Yes,
sorry to interject. As far as that meeting tomorrow with the consuls, as far as those states that are, striving to get the body, in line, would any of their elected, what they say, wazirs or representative be able to tap into that council call tomorrow?
Yeah, and anyone is available as long as
we all available. Oh, okay, so it's not just great. So
let me clarify. Not you have to have already established your state. You have to be in the state in the process of integrity of domains. The second box, your ascensions and things of that nature. What we were discussing today.
Oh, okay.
If you've reached that level, then yes, anyone. You could be a regular national, or you can be the wazir. You can be a part of the discussion. If you haven't done that yet, then no, it's closed off only for those who have established their states.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, Islam, good brother. So that's part of the incentive, but it ain't even just based on an incentive. It's based on security. You know what I'm saying? We can't just have anybody just on these calls. We got to have a certain level of security. Not to say that we're not tapped. Our phones aren't tapped, and our Zoom accounts ain't. They're listening. They're practicing espionage, which is outlawed, by the way. So let us find out and see if that don't be part of the evidence that we will use against them. So they might want to steer clear from any form of espionage if they're listening right now.
Yeah, they are listening. They are listening. And that's good that they're listening. You know why? So when we make the case, they can't say they didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. They can't claim plausible deniability.
Exactly.
So again, like I was saying, I hope that I touched on all the points that needed to be touched on for you guys to have an understanding on how to push forward with your state once it's been established. I hope you took good notes. And again, like I've said before, I'm available for questions, concerns, and meetings. Brother Nasik, Brother Hawk, Sister Jana, you guys know that. And in case others don't, keep that in mind. If you need some sort of a consultation on the side with your body politic, give me a call. It'll be 1,500 notes. I'll give you my cash app. I'm just playing. But I'm available. My time is free. I'll just look forward to you guys establishing your state, Islam. So with that, Brother Kirk, did you get the number?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right. Before I shut it down, then you won't have access to it anymore. So with that said, brothers and sisters, I appreciate your time and your attendance and your participation. This was an awesome discussion. And with that being said, may the blessings of Allah be upon you all. Peace, love, and light. Islam.
Islam.
Islam, boys.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam.